Good afternoon. We're going to go ahead and start the work session for the Waterloo City Council. Would Madam Clerk start out with roll call, please?
Mr. Jacobs, Mr. Morrissey,
Here.
Mr. Shimp,
Here.
Mrs. Klein,
Here.
Mr. Amos,
Here.
Mr. Schmidt,
Here.
Mrs. Juon.
Here.
Motion to approve the agenda is proposed.
Second.
Discussion? If not, all in favor of approving the agenda as proposed, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Terrific. Tonight, we have the honor of discussing the franchise with MediaCom, and Mr. Lee Grassley, who I've known forever, is going to kick it off, right?
Yes, ma'am. Just a couple of quick housekeeping things. How much time do we have?
Our next meeting is at 5:10.
So we got a little bit of time,
Yeah.
okay. I guess, first of all, I want to thank members of council and city staff for inviting us here. It's an interesting opportunity for us to talk to you and let you know kind of, where we've been. We want to tell you where we're at and where we're going today. And obviously, there are some questions about the budget ramifications of the state franchise and the whole franchise provisions that are expiring on June 30th of this year, and I'll be happy to address those. With your permission, though, I would like to, first of all, introduce members of the team here that runs Eastern Iowa to you. We have Chuck Gillespie over there on the end. Chuck is our lead engineer. Jason Chicken. Jason is a technical operations manager for Northeast Iowa. All these people in the trucks and stuff that you see running around town, they all work for Jason. And Corey Bowman is the area director of operations, and they all work for Corey. So without further ado, and with your permission, I'm going to ask Corey to kind of run through a real quick slideshow and kind of tell you where we're at and where we're going, and then we'll open it up for questions. So thank you, Corey.
Thank you.
All right, I got a little homework assignment for you guys afterwards.
no.
No, I'm just kidding. No, it's just a little take-home booklet that's got some of the basic information. There's some recent news articles, things like that in there, and some pictures and maps, and just so you can see some updates. I'm going to hit some of those on the slideshow just so you can see where we are today. Make sure this works. So just a few highlights on here. MediaCom, we're the 5th largest cable company in the U.S. We are in the 3rd year of our $1 billion private capital investment, which has allowed us to increase all of our residential speeds up to the 1 gig for every home that we serve, and that happened in January 2017. We have over 600,000 miles of fiber coast to coast across the United States. We are the largest broadband provider in Iowa and the 3rd largest phone provider in the state of Iowa. We have 4,700 employees, 1,800 employees in Iowa, and we have 65 that work out of the Waterloo office itself. So, as you all know, in January 2017, Iowa was named the first gigabit state in the nation. That was due to the 1 gig launch that we launched to every home that we serve, which is 309 communities across the state, which is a big deal, right? I mean, to be the first in anything is a historic moment, so it's good for Iowa. Next is another one. I saw you posting on the city's website or Facebook page yesterday about the Iowa being the best state in the nation. The biggest change we had in that year over year is the infrastructure, which results in the ultra-fast internet that MediaCom was a huge part of it by rolling that out to 309 communities. So it's a big win for the state of Iowa in many different categories. We just like to highlight infrastructure because we were a part of that. So this is a recent map from March of 2018. I know it's hard to see from there, but the little purple squares are the communities that MediaCom serves with up to 1 gig internet residentially. And the other marks are not necessarily competitors, but other large companies that provide 1 gig internet. So you can see across the Midwest, we are by far the leading provider of up to 1 gig speeds. And you can see even the metro markets like New York City, Chicago, there are very limited providers that are offering those kind of speeds. So it's been MediaCom's mission since the beginning to provide what people expect in large cities to rural communities. So this map kind of proves that we're doing that. And this map is in the booklet that I have for each of you. Some recent news, Mediacom Business, so our commercial side of the business, recently upgraded our speeds. So any customer that was on the current 10 meg internet was bumped to the 60 meg. Anybody on 20 meg went to 100. Anybody on 50 meg went to 300. And the best part is we didn't increase any price. It's just we have the network to provide those kind of speeds, so we just give it to them, which just allows them to get business done faster. So the biggest deal is, we've done that. We've done speed boosts many, many times over the years that Mediacom's been present. And most of those times we've never increased any price. It's just the natural progression of increasing broadband. This one doesn't get talked about a lot. Whenever it first rolled out, it's the Network Operations Center out of our Des Moines office. When it first rolled out, it was on TV. There were some commercials, but we haven't really advertised it much. But it is a very useful tool for our company. It's monitored, which means we monitor our network 24 hours a day, 365 days a year. There's somebody always on staff, and it's located in Des Moines, so it's in the state of Iowa. We can monitor every modem we have, so we can see what's going on. If it's failing signal levels or anything's happening, we know in advance. So we have a lot of tools available to us to monitor our customers' network. This Connect to Compete, hopefully everybody has heard about this, but this is the program for K through 12. Let me just read it here. So the requirements are, it's so small on my computer I can't read. So you have to be K through 12. At least one child qualifies for free reduced school lunch, and you're not a current Mediacom customer within the past 90 days, and you don't owe Mediacom money from the past. So this is just a program to provide those people that can't afford to pay a certain level, they can get it for $10 a month. So they can still get their education needs met over the internet. This one I didn't put a lot on there, but I just wanted to mention it. Mediacom does have a home security product. It's called Home Controller. It's called Home Controller because it's more of a home automation based, so you can control your lights, thermostat, cameras included, inside, outside. It is also monitored a security system as well, so if a break-in happens, alarm goes off, we dispatch the authorities, just like any major security company. And we are in our 4th year of having this product. So that's a brief overview on that piece, just on some of the updates, some of the things we have to offer. Any questions on that before we kind of get into the franchise part, which I'll mainly let Lee handle since he's our government relations expert.
But you have all of this information in the packet you're going to be handing out to us? Thank you.
Corey. So I've got a question about Mediacom versus CFU. So I don't know if now would be an appropriate time to have that discussion. Absolutely. Or if you want to do that later.
Yeah, that's fine. Go for it.
Okay. Well, I think the question that I have and most Waterloo citizens have is they hear that they can get cheaper, faster internet in Cedar Falls. And it seems like, based on your advertisement, that's not necessarily the case. And I guess we're just looking for clarity here.
Well, the buzzword of fiber to the home is a big deal, right? We are currently not doing fiber to the home residentially. So we do offer 1 gig speeds.
Okay, I'm sorry, so let me back up. This is primarily about business because we hear that we lose business to Cedar Falls because they can get bigger, better than what we can get. And we just had this happen within the last couple of weeks. There's an announcement in the Courier, business is moving to Cedar Falls. I don't know about what other allowances he was given, but the story I heard was the primary reason he moved was because he could get better internet speed. So.
Now, on the business side, I mean, we've had, the interesting thing is I see articles coming out of Cedar Falls recently, testing 10 gig internet, testing this, testing that. We've been able to offer businesses 10 gig for years. So whether we've promoted that properly, maybe not, but we've had as you can see, the top of the slideshow says gigabit plus. That's what that's meant for years. I mean, that's been one of our slogans for the business. So we offer direct connection, fiber connection, up to 10 gig and beyond. So we've had that in Waterloo for years. So it is available. There's no reason we couldn't meet the same expectations that Cedar Falls does.
So for the business community, forget the residential for this part of the discussion. For the business community, you are comparable or superior to
Yes.
CFU is what you're saying?
Yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
Let me follow up on that question then. Do you have the opportunity to visit with the businesses when they're considering going to Cedar Falls for CFU?
Unfortunately,
And the hand movements from Lee indicate the answer to that,
I'm
don't
not
they?
sure what that was the sign
Yeah.
language, but I'm not familiar.
Because we do hear that all the time.
Absolutely you do. And it's been a particular point of frustration for me, okay? Just for those of you who don't know me and know what I do, when business internet first came to Waterloo, I sold the very first business internet product in 1997 to a small insurance company here. I worked in the commercial accounts market for 10 years here before I got into government relations. And one of the things that we sought to do with the Greater Cedar Valley Alliance, and Corey knows we've had, just in his tenure, we had 2 or 3 meetings with people, previous administration over there. Over the years, I probably had a dozen meetings with those folks, and we asked them, in fact, begged them, when you have a potential client come in, let's find out what their needs are, and let us, talk to them, and let us tell them what we have, because you don't know. And they treat it as almost an afterthought. And to me, in this particular day and age, we still can't get an opportunity to talk to the business, to have our business experts talk to these incoming businesses and tell them, this is what we've got, this is what we can do. This is scalable. We can do anything that you need to do. I mean, for crying out loud, I'm just going to give you one real quick example. In a small town between here and Dubuque, there's a company there whose main office is in Australia. We have a direct fiber connection to Australia. Can you believe that? Okay? Well, if we can get a direct fiber connection to Australia, we sure as the devil ought to be able to compete here in our hometown. And we can and we will if we're given the opportunity. And that's the source of my frustration and our frustration for years.
Mr. Grassley, have you had an opportunity to visit with Mr. Anderson on the city
Noel and I
staff?
know each other. Yes, we know each other.
Because Mr. Anderson is more likely to talk to the local business. A lot of times the Alliance tries to get them into the area,
Okay.
and Noel brings them to the city.
Well, I think that one of the things, and we've been threatening to do it, and I think we need to do it, is within the next period of days, I think Noel and I need to get together and set up a meeting with Corey's team and with the business team, because we believe that we can help.
And maybe we don't fully comprehend the capacity and capabilities that you have. And
Yeah, I
that
think
might
that's
be a good
probably,
discussion.
I think that's probably a very accurate statement.
Okay.
Because, I know that we talked with the mayor a couple, 3 or 4 weeks ago, and he said he was at the State of the City thing over in Cedar Falls, and they said they were testing 10 gig, and he was like, oh my God, they're testing 10 gig. We've had 10 gig for 3 years in Waterloo. But you don't know it. And that for...
That's not in our document we hand out, right?
Mr. Anderson, can you address this? Do we talk to the businesses about the capacities that we have here for internet and business service?
Noel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. We can definitely work with the Greater Cedar Alliance actually does business visitations as well. So we can definitely work with them and with our staff to try and get more information from MediaCom to hand out as we're talking to existing businesses or as we're corresponding with new ones or expanding businesses, and make sure that they're on that first line of people that they're talking to for utilities.
No,
Because whether it is the reason or an excuse, I don't know. But certainly it's good to have that information.
It isn't like we haven't made ourselves available. Okay? And Noel, I just want to ask you a question. Is it one of those situations where when you're having someone talk to people about business telecommunication services that you would rather not have us talk to your incoming client before they get here? Is it, I'm trying to understand. Is it something?
No, not at all. I mean, generally it doesn't come up for every business. You know, if it's a warehousing business or something like that, that's not one of their main things they're talking to us about. They're taking care of that. But obviously, if we can include you on the team to help bring things here, we will.
Well, I would appreciate that very much because we stand ready and willing to do that.
And some utilities even financially assist with that. So I'm sure MediaCom would be open to that, don't you think?
I think they pay taxes. They don't take taxes, isn't
Good
that
point.
right?
Good
I
point.
think that's exactly
Good
true.
point.
You're a private for-profit.
Okay, so you're
center.
already
I like you.
contributing. Yes.
Capitalist, yes.
Okay, I'm sorry, we kind of maybe got you off track. If you want to go back, Mr. Bowman?
I guess the other thing just to mention is I frequently hear that it's more of a mindset, I guess, or understanding of what 1 gig speed means. Is I hear frequently that, well, CFU has 1 gig, MediaCom has 1 gig, but CFU is faster. You know, 1 gig is 1 gig. It doesn't matter. But there is this mindset that because maybe fiber to the home or something on the residential side, maybe that's a selling point that they use to say that it's faster. But 1 gig is 1 gig, you know, that it doesn't matter. I mean, we are a fiber-based network, so it's, I'll also hear that, well, MediaCom doesn't have fiber. Well, we have 600,000 miles of fiber. I mean, that's, I'm guaranteeing a few more than our friends next door have. So
You
our
have
network
that many
is,
miles in Waterloo?
no, there's 1,500 miles in Waterloo.
1,500?
Yep.
What about the fiber to the home issue?
Well, most of our service calls we have are related to device issues. It's because everything out there is wireless these days, right? I mean, it's coming to refrigerators, stoves, everything. So it'll be, we show up and it's, well, this device is not connecting. Oh yeah, my other 17 are good. But they call us saying it's not working. So we still go out and work on it and get it taken care of for our customers. But most of our issues are resolved by a single device issue related to it disconnected somehow from the router or something like that. Some people use their own router versus using ours. So, I mean, there's a lot of different things there, but most of our service calls are related to that issue. So the fiber to the home, I mean, your connection is your connection. So it doesn't really matter if it's a fiber directly to your home or not. Our reliability is almost 100%. It's 99.999999 according to our network operations center. So our network is up. And we have to be, right.
Because we're a 911 phone provider.
Right.
I'd like to speak to this fiber to the home thing too. Fiber to the home thing is, fiber to the home is a wonderful idea that was promoted by certain people back in the early 2000s. And one of the main promoters of fiber to the home was a company called Dow Corning.
I'm sorry, who?
Dow Corning.
Okay.
Do you know what they manufacture? Glass. Do you know what fiber optics cable is made out of? Glass. Let's follow the money. And if you do that, you'll find that people promote fiber to the home as the know-all, end-all, and be-all. But we have proven that we can perform on that level with our network architecture. But there's one other funny little thing that they forget to tell you. See, there's no device that's set up today to use light. So when they get fiber to your home, what do they have to do? Why, they have to down convert it back to an RF signal. And how do they get that RF signal to your TV? Oh, damn it, they got to use coax. It's still there, okay? So it's a situation where people use fiber to the home as a buzzword. People use fiber to the home as a propaganda ploy. And our engineers like Mr. Gillespie and Jason and stuff like that have proven that we can perform and do perform at the same level that Cedar Falls Utilities does, day in, day out. And so I think I want to assure the council and the people of Waterloo that we're here, we're ready. Just give us a chance.
Okay, thank you.
One last thing on the fiber to the home is the $1 billion investment we've done over the last, well, this is the 3rd year of that 3 years. That was all about changing the equipment on the ends. So upgrading our equipment in the head ends that we can actually deliver the 1 gig speed. That's what rolled out in January 2017. Now, that equipment that we put in there, it's not maxed out now. So it has the ability to be ramped up even higher on the residential side. So, I mean, there's a lot of expanding that's going to be continuing to happen. I mean, things are not going to slow down. It's just going to keep expanding. People are streaming more and more and more and more, so we're going to keep getting faster and faster and faster along with that.
Okay, thank you. Would one of you plan on addressing the franchise process with us?
I got
Okay.
that. That's me.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you, Corey.
I have a question too when we get to
Yes.
that point.
Mr. Shimp.
Corey,
Corey?
yes, well, I believe so. Corey, how do your prices for our residential customers and commercial customers here in Waterloo, how do they compare to CFU?
The commercial side, I wouldn't be able to, I'd have to look. I don't know off the top of my head. I do know that with the upgrades we did in January 2017 to get the 1 gig speed, it's significantly less than what it used to be getting through fiber. Because you can get 1 gig over coax on the business side for $349 a month. So it's a pretty cheap rate for that kind of speed on the business side. Residentially, especially with our new customers, I mean, with, just like any, cell phone provider or anything, we offer promotions to get people to come on board, right? Those are extremely lower than our competition. So regular rate, we're right in line with what they are. I mean, if you compare our regular rate, go to our rate card online and look at their rate card, we're right in line with what they are. Because they're paying programming costs just like we are, which are the biggest expense we have as a company. So they're paying them just like us. So those rates, if you look and compare, very similar on the full rate side.
Okay. Other questions, Mr. Bowman? Yes, Mr. Morrissey?
Corey and Lee, I was, if you had that map and you had all them little dots, purple dots and all those other, and I take it in some maybe larger communities, there are several different providers, is that correct? And you're in competition.
As far as what?
As far as what you provide.
Video, internet?
Everything.
Yeah, sure.
Every and anything.
For example, there are 8 ISPs in
Okay.
Cedar Rapids. Here in Waterloo, God, I'm trying to think, I think there's 5. Okay, and our video, we don't see a lot of video competition, Pat, simply because of the fact that there's no money in it anymore. I hate to tell you that, but people are still watching their TVs. I mean, let's face facts here. Our penetration rate, video-wise, it's less than 50% in Waterloo. So you can't tell me that half of Waterloo isn't watching TV. Okay, they're watching it with an antenna. They're watching it with DirecTV. They're watching it with Dish Network. They're watching it with whoever. So yes, there's competition out there. We're very cognizant of it, and we're here to compete. So.
Yeah. Other questions?
Did that answer your question? Yeah. Okay.
You sure, Pat?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much, Mr. Bowman. Mr. Grassley.
Yes. I'll just open it up for questions. I think that's probably the easiest way for us to address this, unless you'd like me to give you a 5-minute dissertation on the franchise history.
Just give me, I found it very interesting. I did not realize the franchise fee was negotiated through Des Moines. There's a state contract.
There's no negotiations, okay?
So tell us how that works
Okay.
on the state level.
Let me give you a little history, okay? In 2007, and actually because of the Opportunity Iowa stuff in 2005, there was thoughts about how we could get more competitors into the cable markets, and especially with video. And CenturyLink approached the Iowa legislature and said, hey, we'd like to get into the video game here in Iowa, but we can't do what Mediacom does. We at the time had, all franchises were local with every individual city. We had over 300 franchises. Their claim was simply that if we have to negotiate 300 franchises, it'll take us 10 years to get into the market, and that isn't going to help anything. You know, and each franchise, everybody wants this and they want that, and none of it is standardized, so to speak, with the exception, there are certain things that had to be in there by federal law. But there are, you know, the franchise in Cedar Rapids was markedly different than the franchise in Hazleton, for example, okay? And so it was one of those things where they went to the legislature and said, hey, we're going to enter the marketplace. It'll be good for the consumers if you just pass a state franchising law where all we had to do is apply to the IUB, and we got one franchise covered the whole state. Okay? We did not support, nor did we diligently not support. We were agnostic on this. We're just going to see where it goes. So anyway, they passed the state franchise, and it became law in July of 2007. And basically what that did is it removed the franchising authority from the local level and consolidated it at the state level with the IUB. The statute 477A, is very explicit and is very laid out as to what the requirements are for the franchise. There is no negotiation. There is no nothing. When it's your time, you move from your local franchise to the state-issued franchise. For Waterloo, that transition took place in October of 2013. I'm sure the question is, our franchise didn't expire until June 30th of 2018. How the heck did we get to a state franchise in 2013? Excuse me. There's provision under state law that when a new provider filed a petition with the IUB to receive a state franchise, that they had to notify the incumbent providers. And at that time, because of that competitive filing, the incumbent providers were entitled to switch from a local franchise to a state franchise. And so a company called Alliant Technologies did that for several communities, and Waterloo was one of them. And so once they filed the competitive, filed for the competitive franchise, we went ahead and filed for the state franchise under the provisions of the statute. So in 2013, October 9th, I believe was the effective date, Waterloo became a state franchise. What did that mean? And I think we always look at what did it mean financially, okay? There were two provisions in here that Waterloo receives money from us. One is the franchise fee, 5% of gross revenues. And the gross revenues are defined in the statute. For Waterloo, it was almost exactly the same. I think Michelle can probably bear me out. There was no noticeable difference in the franchise fees from 2013 forward. And you continued at your same rate of 5%. The other thing that was going on here had to do with your public access channel and the support of public access TV. Your old franchise made a provision in there that we would do a pass-through, a fee pass-through to the subscribers of 35 cents per sub. And we would collect that on a quarterly or semi-annual basis and go ahead and pay that to the city. The state franchise provided that any PEG support that was ongoing at the time that we switched from a local to a state franchise was to continue until the expiration date of the original franchise. So we continued paying and collecting that PEG fee from 2013 forward until June 30th of 2018, when the franchise, your old franchise, would have expired had we not gone local. So your last checks from us will be for the quarter ending in June 30th. So those are the two big things and the big changes that affected you guys. And so that's kind of where we're at today.
So after June 30th, we no longer get that franchise fee from you?
No. The franchise fee is ongoing. It's the public access
It's the 35 cent? Okay.
Yes, the franchise fee is ongoing. No worries there.
Okay. Questions of Mr. Grassley?
Go ahead.
Yes,
Well,
Mr. Morrissey?
Maybe Michelle, if I could defer there, Lee. Michelle, what does that mean as far as money coming in at all?
Michelle Wiedner, Chief Financial Officer, and I'm speaking from memory, so this might not be 100% accurate, but we did budget to stop receiving the PEG fee that Lee referred to in fiscal 19. I believe it was running about 60,000 is the number I have in my head recently. We have been seeing both the franchise fee and the PEG fee declining, and I'm going to assume that's because of what Mr. Grassley talked about the market penetration changing. So unfortunately, the franchise fee is not as much a revenue as it was
that
let's say
based on
5
the
years
number
ago.
of customers?
The franchise fee is based on sales to customers. The PEG fee is based on number of subscribers. So it's a little bit different, but they do seem to move in a relatively similar direction.
How's your memory doing on about how much we get in franchise fee?
I want to guess about 650,000. About 650,000. And I did budget for a continued reduction in that. We would be thrilled if you could increase that for us, solely.
Actually, the franchise fee amount, as she very well knows, is set by the FCC. And so the maximum is 5% of video revenue. Here's what's happening in our business, and I think we for one have accepted it, and we have embraced it. Traditional video is kind of going away of the horse and buggy. I mean, let's face facts here. When you've got, people that watched TV on a phone, on a tablet, on their computer, they can watch last night's NCIS that was on last night today on the computer. Doesn't cost them anything. IPTV is the wave of the future. IPTV is simply Internet Protocol Television. Okay, your franchise fees are going to continue to decline as the video subscribers go away. And that's just a fact of life. And so we have chosen to, try to do what we can do. And the other thing that's really hard and awkward for us in the video business these days is the pricing. And the pricing, and I'm just going to talk about us. I don't care about anybody else. I don't care about DirecTV. I don't care about CFU. I don't care about Waverly. All I know is what we deal with on a day-to-day basis, trying to get these companies to be reasonable with retransmission consent fees. It wasn't too long ago, 2005, let's pick a year, where the signal that we received from the local NBC affiliate back over here, we pick up over there, it was free, okay? And then a United States Senator from Arizona, whose name I won't mention, but his initials are John McCain, came in and decided that they wanted to do something to enhance the transfer of analog video to digital video. And they came up with the United States, it was called the Digital Video Act or some such nonsense as that. But basically what happened was they made all of these guys, like KWWL, put all their stuff into digital. Well, there's one thing, there's a big difference scientifically or whatever between the way analog travels and the way digital travels over the air. Analog, I'll just give you a quick example. I have an uncle of mine who lives in Wilton, Wisconsin. And while KWWL was able to broadcast analog over the air, Wilton, Wisconsin's 117 miles from here. He could watch Ron Steele, okay? They switched to digital, and the digital signal travels less than 30 miles over the air. And it's a scrambled digital signal anyway. So they kind of figured out that the only way that we were going to get their signal is if we run a piece of fiber into there and they hooked us up. Well, golly, if this is the only way they can get it, it's through their piece of fiber that we hooked up to them. If we refuse to give them service, that means they don't have none. So consequently, maybe we can charge them for it. And that's when it started. That's when it started. Today, I won't say we're paying as much for our broadcasters as we are for ESPN, but it is doggone close. And it ain't, and they don't seem to care. They don't back off at all. Just from our perspective, We had last year here 6.5% price increase on video. If you only knew what our percentage of increase was that we didn't pass on to the customer. I can't really divulge, but I can tell you it's over double. Okay, so we're looking at this, and our opportunity is honestly in internet and telephone. Because just as a real quick history, real quick picture in time, and I'll get out of here. When Mediacom came to Iowa in July of 2001, we had nationwide 1.6 or 7 million video customers. Less than 1% of our customers had internet, and phone was non-existent. Fast forward to today, okay, nationwide, we still serve 1,700 cities. We pass more homes now than ever before. But our subscriber base on our video is down under 800,000 now, okay? But we have over a million internet customers and over 500,000 phone customers. We're a high-tech company today that has video as a loss leader. And that's how we're going to survive. We're going to survive and we're going to prosper because of the billion-dollar investment, because of our infrastructure, because we can provide, the things that we can provide. We're very confident in what we're doing and confident in our ability to serve the city of Waterloo. So again, members of the council, city staff, we want to thank you for the opportunity to come here today. And if there is anything that we can do for you, please, you let me know, Corey, we'll get it done.
Thank you. Let me just see if there's some other questions. Mr. Morrissey? Mr. Shimp?
Yes. So 5% of the gross revenues, of Mediacom's gross revenues.
No. Gross revenues is defined as in the statute, okay? It's gross revenues from video only, okay? So it's not 5% of our gross fees. I see. Okay. Because we're a multi-billion-dollar company. That would be a lot of money. Mm-hmm. No, but it is, and if y'all want, I can. If anybody wants to contact me by email, I will be happy to send you a copy of the statute with the definition of gross revenues in it. It's quite lengthy, but it's fair. But it's based on video revenue. Okay.
Okay, and so then to our budget, our own city budget. I remember during budget time talking about the PEG fee going down. Where that was coming up. So where exactly does this revenue come in on? I know no one's gonna be able to tell me the exact line, but just what activity is it?
It's in the clerk finance activity.
Clerk
General
finance.
Fund 010, Department 3, Activity 8400. And you're right, I don't remember which account number. That's 30 something.
That's fine. I'll find it in there. But is that also?
And the PEG fee goes to the. We've been putting that in the actual cable TV activity, which is 010, 03, 8150.
Okay. And so that finance fee though, or that franchise fee, excuse me, is that also is that same line item, is that the franchise fee from Mid-America?
No.
No, that would be a different one. Okay.
Yep.
Okay. Mr. Morrissey?
I yield.
Lee, I was wondering, I mean, in the recent past, there's been these concerns about privacy issues. Cambridge Analytica, I think, is the name of one of the things that's out there right now. And there's been other, breaches and hacking and stuff like that. And can you address where Mediacom comes in?
You're talking about the net neutrality issue, aren't you, Pat?
No, not net neutrality.
I'm talking about because that's all part of it.
Release of private information.
We do not release private information at all.
So nobody can buy that from you at all.
That is no. We have never done that.
Okay, thanks.
Other questions?
Yeah, I did have a quick question here before we get done. You said that the revenues are constantly dropping, that 5%, and I understand it's just the video side of things, and that's
Yes.
constantly dropping. I guess my question is that lining up with the way that you had the budget set up, Michelle, as far as the reduction and things going in at the same level?
Well, I hope so. Of course, we just have to make estimates of that, of what's going, and I don't know what rate of reduction we'll have, but hopefully we are not over budgeted too much for that.
But you have no way to project exactly how far it's
No,
going to go? No projection or
that's
anything
just
like
a
that? Just a guess.
Councilman, that's just a guessing game with us. All we can do is look at trends, and I think we've been trending down 2 to 5% the last few years, and then all of a sudden 3 years ago, for crying out loud, we had a positive net gain in video subs. And that just threw everything out of whack, So it's
No way
just,
to
it's a,
project.
no, sir, I'm sorry.
Any other questions? If not, Mr. Grassley, Mr. Bowman, and the whole MediaCom crew, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate that. You have some handout for us, I believe.
Yep. Thank you so much, everybody. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Yes.
Motion adjourned.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Terrific. Finance will meet back here at to go ahead and call the.
Bruce here.
Oh, I'm sorry, you lost your role.
Margaret, you're
Darn it. You got booted, Margaret. I know you were excited. I know you were excited.
Bruce, you have booted Margaret from standing in for you today.
Oh, good.
Okay, going to call to order a meeting of the Finance Committee. Madam Clerk, roll call, please.
Mr. Jacobs?
Here.
Mr. Morrissey?
Here.
Mrs. Juon?
Here.
Motion to approve the agenda and the minutes of April 9th, 2018 as proposed.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Ask for a motion for travel requests, please.
Okay, I'll go ahead. Travel requests are as followed from Spencer Jensen, Facility Specialist, and Donald Thomas Hallmeyer, volunteer, for delivering and picking up artwork at Quincy, Illinois, Memphis, Tennessee on April 26 to 28, 2018, with the amount not to exceed $670. Second is Cheryl Huddleston, Human Resources Manager, to attend the National Public Employer Labor Relations Association Annual Training Conference in Charleston, South Carolina, from April 14th through 19th of this year, with amount not to exceed $589. And finally, Matt Chesmore and Rudy Jones to attend the annual education conference for the National Environmental Health Association and Healthy Homes Conference in Anaheim, California, June 24th to 29th of this year, with the amount not to exceed $6,360.
Second.
Discussion? And I believe, someone maybe clarify this for me, I believe Ms. Huddleston is contributing part of the cost of the trip on her own. Is that correct? Does anybody know?
That is correct.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Huddleston. Appreciate that. All right, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same? Terrific. Who would like to make a motion on pre-authorization to expend over $1,000?
Madam Chairperson, pre-authorization to expend over $1,000, building maintenance $5,881.69, to purchase a 10-foot conference table, 10 swivel tilt chairs, 6 stacking chairs, 1 four-door credenza for the first floor concert room at City Hall, police $6,360 for the maintenance license renewal for 30 Cradle points, sanitation $44,100 plus $4,838.08 for shipping and handling to purchase 300 large and medium garbage carts and recycling yard waste carts. Street Department, $1,197 to purchase one 5-foot by 8-foot flatbed caravan capacity trailer. Traffic Operations, $24,750 for the purchase of an Accusin radar detection for Wagner Road and Airline Highway. And Traffic Operations, $1,283.94 for the purchase of one NA8-310-A607-GV Miller Bin pole.
Second.
Discussion?
Madam Chairperson, overview on number 8 for the $24,750 for the radar detection for Wagner Road and Airline Highway.
Okay, who would like to discuss that? Sandy?
Sandy Greco, Interim Public Works Director. That is for the 63 detour, and we are being reimbursed by the state for that.
Thank you.
I'm sorry, being reimbursed by who?
The DOT, the state.
Great. Any further questions? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Thank you. Okay, budget line items to be amended. Approve the project budget for the Wagner and Airline Traffic Signals Project, funded with $40,163 in state funds as submitted by Traffic Operations.
Second.
Discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Terrific. Okay, under bills payment, as in accounts payable report dated April 16th, 2018, receive, place on file, and forward to full council the amount of $2,866,554.81.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion? If not, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? We are adjourned until the full council meeting at 5:30. Thank you. I have the duty to report that Mayor Hart cannot join us this evening. He's out of town on a very important meeting. It's so important that he put a first-time vision-impaired person in his wake. And so that tells you how important that meeting must be. So with that, I'll call the meeting to order and go to Madam Clerk for roll call.
Mr. Jacobs? Here. Mr. Morrissey?
Here.
Mr. Shimp?
Here.
Mrs. Klein?
Here.
Mr. Amos?
Here.
Mr. Schmidt?
Here.
Mrs. Juon?
Here. Okay, please join me in a moment of silence as we contemplate our actions. The Pledge of Allegiance this evening will be presented and led by Michelle Whitener, our Chief Financial Officer.
Please join me in the pledge to our flag. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I would like to make a motion to approve the agenda as amended, and I've got 3 amendments here I'll read in just a minute. And also the minutes of April 9th, 2018 regular session. And our amendments are item 1A7 in the consent agenda, We are amending by adding the word taxable, including the date of public hearing, to read as follows. Resolution fixing date for a meeting is April 30th, 2018, on the authorization of a loan and disbursement agreement and the issuance of not to exceed $1,700,000 in taxable sewer revenue capital loan notes of the City of Waterloo, Iowa, and providing for publication of notice thereof. Item number 1B4 in the consent agenda, amended by deleting the word March to read as follows. Motion to approve exception to burning yard waste application for Hawkeye Community College to burn approximately 7 acres of prairie grass between April 5th and May 10th, 2018. And then finally, item 1B5 in the consent agenda, also deleting the word March to read as follows. Motion to approve exception to burning yard waste application for Donald Miller to burn approximately 1.5 acres of prairie grass between April 5th and May 10th, 2018.
Second.
Okay, discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, terrific. We have a proclamation declaring April 22nd through the 28th, 2018 as Arbor Week, and Councilman Morrissey has agreed to assist in presenting the proclamation to our Recreation Director, Paul Heading.
Do you want to be on my left or right?
You're fine.
Okay.
Always going to be on your
Nobody
right.
could be on your left.
Nobody
Paul.
could be on
No,
your
nobody could
Nobody's going to be on my left. Thank you.
I knew you would appreciate that. I meant that in a very positive.
And I will always keep you on my right, Councilman
Exactly.
Schmidt.
We are aligned.
Okay. This is a proclamation from the City of Waterloo, Iowa, and it states the following. Whereas trees provide a pleasing environment in Waterloo for the benefit of our residents and visitors, contributing greatly to our positive image. And whereas the optimum reforestation of Waterloo will require public participation and cooperation, resulting in an attractive community. And whereas the management of trees increases the benefits to our community through planting, maintenance, timely removal, and replacement. And whereas the Iowa Legislature has designated the last Friday in April as Arbor Day throughout Iowa, now, therefore, Quentin Hart, who, as you know, is the mayor of Waterloo, has proclaimed the week of April 22nd through the 28th, 2018, as Arbor Week in Waterloo, Iowa, and encourages all citizens of Waterloo to celebrate this occasion and the beauty of our city by planting a tree. And this is presented to Quality of Life Amenity Extraordinaire, Director Paul Hudding of Leisure Services.
Yay.
Thank you. Wow. I want to thank the mayor and council. You're the mayor today, so I'm thanking you and the council for your support. We also had a press release today, earlier, that we have been named Tree City USA for the 34th year in a row, and that's due to the commitment of the mayor and council and the citizens who support us with the funding for taking care of our urban forest resource in Waterloo. And we have some tree plantings coming up this year. I'll just run through this quickly. We have 210 tree plantings scheduled for this year, possibly some more. We're still working with some schools for some Arbor Day planting. But on Prospect Boulevard, we're going to plant 76 trees, replacing the ash trees that were recently removed due to the emerald ash borer. We'll be assisting the Kingsley Neighborhood Association with this planting. In Miller Park, we're going to plant 37 trees, also replacing ash trees. Levitt Park, 6 trees, again replacing ash trees. Liberty Park, 30 trees. Those also will be replacing ash lost to the EAB. Valley Road and Pleasant Valley Drive, 34 trees in the median there, also ash trees being replaced. And on Washington Street downtown, 27 trees replaced. Funding for these trees came from a variety of sources. The Kingsley Neighborhood Association has done a fundraiser for the trees in the Prospect area. Mid-American Energy Trees Please grant, Northeast Iowa Community Foundation grant, Green Scene grant,
And revenue from the sale of the ash logs from our ash tree removal program, along with some bond money, has helped us to be able to do this. So thank you very much, Council, for your support, and thank you for the proclamation.
I was just reminded, sadly, that we've lost one of our own. Sergeant Greenlee just passed away over the weekend, I believe. Chief Treelor, do you have any, or, I'm sorry, do you have any updates on that for us?
Dan Trelka, Chief of Police. His funeral is being scheduled for Friday at Prairie Lakes Church in Cedar Falls. There's going to be it's at 10:30. There's going to be a visitation from 4 p.m. until 7 p.m. Thursday evening. And Bob was just a fantastic man. As soon as people learned of his death, the tributes started pouring in. The man has literally positively impacted the lives of thousands of people. So it's he's quite a man.
And he had been with the city for how long?
24 years.
Wonderful. Thank you for sharing that news with us. Okay, go ahead and have our oral presentations. As a reminder, these are items that are not on the agenda. No, I've got it someplace. Hold on. And I ask that you follow the rules as printed on the front of the agenda. And just on a personal note, while we all welcome getting everyone's input, I would be delighted to hear some positive news tonight. So if anyone has something that they're really proud of that they'd like to present, I'd really welcome that. With that started, just a second, Jim, we have 3 people that have already signed up. The people that sign up get to have 5 minutes to address one topic, and we give them the preference of starting out. So, it's Dwayne Eilers here who wants to talk about water turnoff. And I apologize, I can't see faces very well yet, so.
Thank you.
Yes, Mr. Eilers.
I'm here on the same project of the water turnoff at 179 West 18th Street. It's a bicycle trail. The city has plowed it all winter long. In the repairs made by Frictions, they showed right on it that the pipe was plowed, was hit, the cap was gone, the pipe was bent, and it was full of dirt. And those are the comments made by Frictions. In 2012, I put in a brand new water turnoff at my expense because the city wouldn't do it. They put in the bicycle trail, and whoever did that plowed all the water turnoffs off. Now Friction has come back and put this on, and put it on by order of the city or the water company in January when it was freezing cold and the ground was all frozen and everything else. And they indicated that all of the items that I said to you. Also on the Friction bill is they charged me for 2 water turnoffs. They put 2 in there. They don't know where the other one goes to. But they charged me another $700 in this bill for a water turnoff that don't belong to me. Who does it belong to? But it's in the bill. First of all, damaging to the water pipe was a city responsibility. Second of all, they charged me for 2 water turnoffs. I've had the water manager out there, and they did all the testing. He says, we don't know where it went to. We don't know where it goes, but we're not going to dig up the street to find out where the second one went to. So I want to ask one good question to the city attorney. Is the city going to accept the responsibility of this bill or not? because along with that, the water company went over to my son's house and cut off his water, saying we can cut off any water that you own. Well, another mistake. I didn't own the house. I rented a house for my son to live in. So now they apologized and said they'll cut off the fine. They were going to fine me for not paying a deposit over there. And this is one big mess. Also, the city water company says they have the authority to go cut any water off that I own. I said, so I got 5 renters. You want to go off and cut them off the renters that paid up their bills? Well, we can cut off anybody. Any property that you own, we can cut it off. So why didn't they cut off the property where they were fixing the water meter? They didn't cut it off there. They made a deal with that renter to make payments, but yet they assess me for that. And they also assessed me for cutting the water off at my son's, which was a mistake, and they said, well, now we're sorry, we made a mistake. The bill's not mine. The water turnoff was damaged by the city plows. They plow that bicycle trail. Now they bill me for another water turnoff. There's 2 of them out in front of the place. And I brought him back out there and I said, where do they go? He says, he don't know. They tested it. So does somebody want to fix this mess? I don't want to go to court against the city, and the city don't want to go to court against me. It's not my bill. I didn't damage it. The city gave me proof. They took pictures that we put a new one in 2012 or 13 right in there. So I got another letter today, says, pay this bill, $1,318. So I'm asking the city attorney for a comment. Is it?
The department staff will follow up as appropriate. Don't necessarily answer questions during the public hearings or the public comments. So I appreciate your concerns. I appreciate what you've been through. And
well, would the city then or the city attorneys write me a letter saying we're not going to pay this bill? Then I can contact my lawyer and we can go to court and fight it out. And I'm not going to ask just for the damages. I want damages. They cut my son's water off. It didn't have nothing to do with me. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate your comments. Thank you. Amy, is it Gerritsen? Okay. Is Amy here? Amy's going to talk about the Phelps Youth Pavilion, right?
Yes, correct. I am trying to bring a little bit of positive news. Happy Monday again.
Thank you. Yay.
I'm Amy Gerritsen, 519 Lafayette, and I am employed by the City of Waterloo in the Culture and Arts Department. As stated on the front of every agenda, every week, it states city goal number 4 is to enhance the image of Waterloo and the city to residents and businesses inside and outside of the community. A large part of that enhancement is our fabulous art museum, which has a very large education wing that houses an entire hands-on museum for children and their families. This may be news to some residents and some outside residents, but it's a wonderful resource for the community. For the past few years, I've had the pleasure to serve as the manager of this full hands-on children's museum run by the City of Waterloo. So my exciting news I came to share with you today is that museum is turning 10 years old. Our anniversary is on Thursday, April 19th. I have a beautiful flyer designed by a graphic designer that I can hand out to you if you'd like. And that celebration will be Thursday, April 19th, 5:30 to 7:30 p.m. And we will be opening a whole bunch of really exciting things at the Children's Museum. Now, if you're not too familiar with that wing of the building of the Waterloo Center for the Arts, we serve 23,000 people a year come through my wing of the museum here in the city. thousands of people come to enjoy hands-on arts activities and learn about cultures from around the world, visual arts. It's a really, really fabulous community resource. We have over 40 birthday parties a year with 1,000 guests making their really special memories at our museum. We have over 100 school tours with roughly 4,000 school children that come through, which I know is a legacy that lives on from the arts attractions that were once in the basement of the old rec center. That's something to be really proud of. And our world's greatest spring break for kids, we saw nearly 4,000 people come through just that 1 week alone. So this is a resource that serves our community, and I'm so proud to have worked with it for the past few years. So proud that's turning 10 years old. And on that note, I am actually moving on from the city of Waterloo. I'll be pursuing an adventure in Minnesota in the coming weeks, sadly, but I did want to come speak to you all just very quickly about that. So on Thursday, we'll be having a ribbon cutting. The public is invited to this too. Everyone who's watching or listening out there, it's only $1 admission. For kids and adults, their families are invited to come down. Again, that ribbon cutting will be at 5:30 on Thursday. We'll have scratch cupcakes, food, music. A magician will be unveiling a brand new exhibit that I helped design called Art That Moves. So art doesn't have to be just static. It can be very lively and move as well. And we'll be doing a presentation all about our brand new Playscape, which is a two-story climbing structure built in the large round glass room. It's lit up at night with bright colors. It's very noticeable. I'm sure if you head on down to the library or to Single Speed and you look across the street, you're like, what's that big glass room? That is our new Playscape exhibit, which help promotes gross motor skills and all our little ones get those bodies moving and shaking and moving around to promote health and wellness in our kids. So yeah, I just wanted to bring that positive news that and invite everyone down to that celebration. If you would like a handout, I'll give a few to our Cultural and Arts Director to hand out to you all. I would also like to thank, while I have a really short bit of time, Black Hawk Gaming for their contribution in helping us with that project in the city of Waterloo, and the Greater Valley Chamber and Alliance, who will also be present for the ribbon cutting. And yeah, thank you so much for giving me that opportunity.
We should thank you for your service to the youth for the pavilion. Thank you so much. And I guess we'll wish you good luck in Minnesota, but if you want to come back, just let us know.
Thank
and
you.
I also understand that we're trying to get the mayor to be the first one to come down that Playscape. Do you think that's going to happen?
Well, there is a twisty slide.
I know.
And I think he'll fit in it.
I think so.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to work on that.
Yeah.
So.
Thank
you so much, Amy. Okay, and the next person up is Bruce. Is it Kaiser? Kaiser.
Thank you, Mayor and council members. I'm Bruce W. Kaiser, head of the CRT departments from Waterloo. I would like to say good evening. Thank you, all my friends back at the CRT towers, for reminding me to speak up. One of my big problems with getting shot in the head is that I'm too quiet. I'm sorry. If you can't hear me, please ask me to speak up again, please. In honor of Sunday, April 22nd's Earth Day, I believe that now is the time to recycle old friendships, renew your relations with your friends and family members, and instead of shooting somebody, killing them off and ending their lives and hurting you, why not put the guns down and practice random acts of kindness, please? I mean, do something good for somebody that lifts somebody else up, builds somebody else up, helps make somebody feel good. encourage others to do it too, please. I just hope this makes you smile, Mayor. Thank you for my time. Thank you for tolerating me. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you, Bruce. You're an inspiration to many of us, so thank you. Okay, who is next?
Jim Chapman, 224 Birch. First of all, I want to express my family sympathy to the Greeley family. We lost a good one, so, I've been there, done that. So, but on Thursday nights, we've been going through the city departments to see how the city departments functions, and Thursday night we went through the fire department and the police department, and I can't believe how much equipment that it takes over the fire department to run that. We got some of us got to run the jaws of life and see how they send the ambulance out, and if anybody's having a heart attack, to do the compressions, and got the machine that takes over. And I don't know what that was they put in his mouth, if that was suction the air out or what, but I've never been on the end of a hose till then, and that was only 70 pounds of pressure. And I'll tell you, everybody ought to go over and get on the end of that hose once and just see what they do over there. And the police department, we went through there and we had a good presentation there. So that's a good program on Thursday night. So I thought maybe that'd be positive. Thank you. Have a good night.
Very positive. Thank you, Mr. Chapman. Is there anyone else?
I have a question. Is this just number one, or are you going to do a public hearing for the housing section?
We'll do a public hearing for the housing, yeah. This is just public comments for items that are not on the agenda.
David Dreyer, 3145 West 4th Street. I have a positive on the training, the fire training and equipment that they have. However, there's always a but, I understand that we have a fire truck that is capable of fire and medical that is locked up in Station 6. We have fantastic firefighters who are cross-trained to be medics, and they do a very good job. But when we leave a vital piece of equipment, and on the brochure we had, it says there's one fire truck that is equipped for medical and fire, and we leave that sit locked up in a fire station, and it's locked up again today, then it makes me wonder why we don't relocate that fire truck to a station that's open all the time, rather than leaving it sitting there, and a less valuable piece of equipment is on the street. Let's see if we can't do something to relocate that fire truck to a different station, put a different number on it, whatever you got to do, to make sure that that truck is on the street with a capable firefighter cross-trained as a medic. And we saw that at the fire station. I'm one of the ones that was with Jim when we did this tour of the fire and police. Fantastic piece of equipment, and we leave it sit idle. Another thing is, I see on the doing the budget, the finance, that we have garbage cans that are still getting busted, or are we just catching up? That we're spending a lot of money again on replacing garbage trucks. Looks like $44,100 plus $4,838.08 shipping and handling for another bunch of garbage trucks or garbage cans. It seems to me like years ago, or over the last few years, we've replaced a lot of garbage cans. Who's busting them? If I'm busting it, you should bill me. If somebody else is busting it, you should bill them. If the sanitation department's busting them, they should be billing it. And the HVAC system at the wastewater is broken, or is it just old and we're going to replace it? I can't afford to replace something in my house until it's broken. I don't feel you should spend city money to fix or to replace something that's just old. The other item is there's on one of the consent, I think it's the first consent agenda, is a
Mr.
state loan.
Yeah, did you have a final question? And I believe we're just to address items that are not on the agenda. And as our rules state, you get to pick one item that you address. So you got to get 3 for 1 in there, sir.
Well, that's good. We're still under the democracy.
There you
No,
go.
we're under dictatorship. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that would like, and again, the rules state that you get to pick one item that's not on the agenda to address. No one else? Yes, sir. Come on, come forward.
Good evening. My name is Spencer Jensen. Good evening.
Speak
My name
right
is
into the
Spencer
mic.
Jensen.
There you go.
Address is 1129 Byron. I'm here today to introduce a mural project that I would like to, just basically go over and share locations and why we should incorporate some murals into the Waterloo city. I made a short PowerPoint. Why do we need murals? Murals create a sense of community. Murals attract people. They promote creativity. Murals give life to mundane spaces. Murals are low cost and easy to maintain. I just wanted to go over and basically share with you what I would need. And the only materials that I would need is just paint. 1 gallon of paint is $8 to $20 a gallon. It usually covers 25 to 300 square feet. Some helpers would be nice. I've talked to Kim Boehm, who works at the the Hawkeye Community College, and he has told me that he has some students that he would be able to most likely convince for extra credit to help me paint some murals. Community service members would also be another outlet to get helpers to make these murals happen. And of course, volunteers, and then the city's approval eventually. Prime real estate for murals, the parking garage on the corner of Mulberry and East Park, the pedestrian walkway bridge columns by the Ramada, Liberty Park, the north wall, flood walls across from the Waterloo Center of the Arts, parking garage near the Ramada, the back wall of the Waterloo Housing Authority on Mulberry. And then I just highlighted those areas on an aerial map. I also took pictures. Liberty Park currently has a lot of crude graffiti on it. I think this would be a prime location to start with maybe, or the parking garage by the Ramada. And that's all I wanted to share with you. Thanks.
Thank you. You sent me some information. I would imagine you sent some information to other council members. We've now asked you, and I've talked to our Director of Culture and Arts, and he has suggested this go to the Public Arts Committee, and I think he's putting you in touch. Is that correct, Mr. Schenkel? Are you right? So I think that's the appropriate next step, that you would work with the Public Arts Committee there at the Center for the Arts. So.
Okay.
Great ideas. Enjoy your enthusiasm and creativity, and thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else from the public want to make some comments? Okay.
Madam.
Any comments from the council?
Yes, Madam.
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem.
It's a mouthful.
First of all, Amy and John are leaving the community, and that's going to be a sad day to see Amy and John leave. But on to bigger and better. Well, maybe not necessarily better in Waterloo,
Won't be better.
but anyway, but that same evening, this coming Thursday evening, the 19th, is not only, the youth pavilion's 10th anniversary, but it's also an event that's happening in downtown Waterloo that really I hope everybody in this room participates in. For $20, people can participate in Taste of Lou. Our next annual Taste of Lou is this coming Thursday, and it starts at 5:30, goes till 9 o'clock, and then at 9 o'clock there'll be a great big celebration at Single Speed. So you need to fill, or we need to fill that entire building and all of these downtown treats where we're going to get treats. And my understanding is that the person that has sort of coordinated this has paired each place and each entree sampling with a particular beer. Now, if you don't drink beer, okay, you don't drink beer. But, that's a cool idea that's come up, and that's courtesy of Nate Nims. So I encourage everybody, and I hope everybody will attend that. And then the other thing is a little bit on a more serious note, and that is that there is a building at the corner of West 2nd and Wellington Street. It used to be an old church, but it needs, and to me, there needs to be an urgency to this to tear that building down, because it is, to me, in dangerous shape. I know it's been 657 aid, but we have budgeting issues in that. But when we have a structure like that where we got kids in that neighborhood that are going into that building, we don't need to have a tragedy. So I'm just bringing this up, bringing it to the public's attention that don't already know it, that building needs to come down, and it needs to come down now. So thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Any other comments from the council?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I make a motion to file all oral comments.
Second.
Okay. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Terrific. Roll.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda, and that'd be items 1A1 through 1B6. And within the consent agenda are the bills payment this week. And those bills amount to $2,866,554.81. That's 2,866,554.81.
Second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. This is a roll call.
Yep.
Okay.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Shimp?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Juon?
Yes. Okay.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, if I could take item number 2. I would. I'd love to. Yes.
Good.
Item number 2 is a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing. That's for the fiscal year 2019 one-year action plan for the CDBG and home program funds for the Waterloo Cedar Falls Consortium.
Second.
Okay. Hold on. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Okay. Open the public hearing on this project, and it should say that we've received one comment on file. Yes, please. I can't read it. I'm sorry.
We had one phone call this afternoon with a comment for the file. Her name is Charlotte Kinney. She lives at 1127 Borland. She commented that she would like to see funds used to repair a home on the corner of 9th and South Street that was damaged by a fire.
No other comments have been received. Is there anyone in the public that would like to comment? Please state your name and address.
I'm Patricia King from Eye of the Needle, 522 Mulberry Street. And I looked at, from the last meeting that I came to, the amount that was approved for us was $5,000. I'm not aware, since there are a lot of new members that are here who may not be aware. It's a lot of work to do it, but we have at least 30% of the people that we have been helping return to work because we provided them with work clothes as well as transportation for a number of people who probably would not have been able to do that. We provide basic needs, which includes a lot of things. And it includes everywhere from, we have people referrals from more than 100 organizations, including hospitals, clinics. We provide school uniforms for the schools. We provide a number of other things like for people to wash their clothes so they can continue to work. So a lot of things that we do, well, we're told we appreciate it, but a lot of times when there are funds that are allotted, then we get the least of them with all the work that we do. And basically, I want to thank the council again for whatever they receive. We try and do the best with what we can. It's not enough. A lot of people comment about our space we're in. We fortunately will finally get a chance to move into a larger space, but it won't be in downtown anymore because we can't afford to stay down here. But we have approved, a year before last, we served almost 6,000 people, which included everything from the people that are brought in from the sex slaves to you name it, because we get all kinds of people that are referred to us. So the amount of money that we deal with versus the amount of money that we really need is often less. We often receive less than what we need. I wanted to, just ask the council, since there are a lot of new members, if there are any questions that you have to ask us, I will answer them. We served 3,578 people last year. Like I said, the year before we served 6,000 people, and it included everything from providing things for babies to laundry vouchers to transportation for people to go to work, because there are a lot of organizations who do not do that, and had that not happened, we would not have as many people working in South, because we provided both their work clothes and their transportation. And I think sometimes, some of the people who are in the city are lax in understanding. They see we have a lot of things, and where we are, we only have 400 square feet, but we'll finally get blessed to be able to move to a larger space. And that's one of the reasons it's crowded, because we serve so many people. There's so many needs of so many things that people need. We don't get a lot of money, so we try and do the best with what we do receive.
Great. Thank you so much for everything that you and your organization does. Does anyone have a question? Okay. Again, thank you so much. Any other comments?
Hi, I'm Barb Grant with Operation Threshold, 1535 Lafayette, Waterloo. My understanding is that the recommendation coming from community development was to provide $15,000 to us to help people get into housing and be able to stay there. Rental housing is a very large need in this community, and we're very appreciative of any support that we get. All of the money goes for assistance. We don't keep any of that for paying for staff time, et cetera. We fund that differently. But if you've got any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Thank you, Ms. Grant. You do a lot for the community. We appreciate that. Any questions from any of the council members? Okay, thank you. Any other comments from the public?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I would make a motion to close the hearing and receive and file oral and written comments.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I'd like to adopt a resolution approving proposed funding recommendations set forth by the Community Development Board for fiscal year 2019.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Shimp?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Juon?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
All right. I think that's it.
I think I missed the last sentence on that motion. I don't
Did
know
you?
that- Do we need to?
Okay, let's make sure that last motion includes 2019 one-year action plan for block grant and home program funds for the Waterloo Cedar Falls Home Consortium.
Right.
Is that agreeable to everyone? Okay, thank you. Okay, on to the next.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
Number 3 is a motion to receive and file proof of publication of notice of public hearing, and that is for the Ridgeway Towers Package Terminal Air Conditioner Cooling Unit Project.
Second. Second. Discussion? If not, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? You open the public hearing. Are there any comments from the public on this project? We have received nothing in-house. There's no comments on file at this point. Yes, sir.
David Dreyer, 3145 West 4th Street. I guess my question is, what is Ridgeway Towers, and do we own this?
Do you want to answer that? Yes, please.
Julie Dawson, Housing Authority Director. The city owns Ridgeway Towers. It is a 50-unit subsidized building for elderly at 225 West Ridgeway, across the street from Village Inn, near the corner of Kimball and Ridgeway. It's right next door to Manor Care Nursing Home. And that is a city-owned building, and it's managed by the Housing Authority.
Okay, didn't know that. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions or comments from the public?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
Motion to close the hearing, receive and file oral and written comments.
Second.
Second. Discussion? If not, all in favor of the motion, say aye.
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 Opposed? Okay, terrific.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
I move to make a resolution confirming approval of plans, specifications, form of contract, etc.
Second.
Discussion?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem. My question, is there a representative from the company here? I have a question on some of this. Basically, well, I'll just ask my question. On the Davis-Bacon wage rate that is being put forth on this, it is for a plumber. My understanding from this project, it is terminal air conditioner cooling units, and the rate for an HVAC person is just a little bit lower than the plumbing rate, and that is historically been the case as well. I found out from someone today that has been a plumber for nearly 50 years. So I'm just curious as to why the rate was highlighted for plumber versus an HVAC person.
Ms. Dawson, do you want to address that?
Once again, Julie Dawson, Housing Authority Director. Actually, when I chose the Davis-Bacon pay rate for this, I contacted the Kansas City HUD office, and they told me that because our PTAC units are hooked into our boiler system, and so there is water, and that's part of the whole system, that they wanted to use the plumber certification rather than the HVAC.
Very good. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion and a second. Further discussion? Not roll call?
Mr. Shimp?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Juon?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
I move to make a motion to receive and file and instruct the city clerk to read bids. Oh, excuse me, I'm sorry. I strike that from the record, and I move to make a resolution authorizing to proceed.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Oh, I'm sorry. My mistake. Roll call.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Juon?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Shimp?
Yes. Madam Mayor Pro Tem, I move to receive and file and instruct the city clerk to read bids.
Second.
Discussion? Okay. This is voice vote, but why do I? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed, same? Okay, thank you. Motion carries.
All right, our estimate was $90,000. First bidder was Young Plumbing and Heating of Waterloo, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their bid amount was $106,440. Second bidder was WBC Mechanical Incorporated of Waterloo, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their bid amount was $166,260. The third bidder was Dalton Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling of Cedar Falls, Iowa. They provided 5% security. Their bid amount was $92,190.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
I move to make a resolution approving award of bid to Dalton Plumbing of Cedar Falls, Iowa in the amount of $92,190 and approving contract bond and certificate of insurance in conjunction with the Ridgeway Towers Package Terminal Air Conditioner Cooling Unit Project and authorize the mayor and housing authority to execute said documents.
Second.
Discussion? Okay, roll call, please.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Juon?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Shimp?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. All right, I ask for motions under the resolutions. If we could address maybe number 4 through number 6.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Number 4, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving award of bids to B&B Lawn Care Incorporated of Waterloo, Iowa in the amount of $1,149.50 mowing per occurrence and $1,875 weed control per application, option A, and R&D Lawn Care of Waterloo, Iowa in the amount of $540 mowing per occurrence, $240 weed control per application, option B, and $380 mowing per occurrence, $240 weed control per application, option C, in conjunction with the fiscal year 18 wastewater treatment plant and lift station mowing, and approving the contracts, bonds, and certificates of insurance, and authorize mayor and city clerk to execute said documents. And next is a resolution approving Blackhawk County Gaming Association grant application in the amount of $600,000 for the Lincoln Park Improvements Project. And then number 6 is a resolution approving McElroy Trust grant application in the amount of $150,000 for the Lincoln Park Improvements Project.
Second.
Discussion?
Madam, if we could have a little overview of item 5 and 6 for the folks at home, Mr. Hudding.
Paul Hudding, Leisure Services Director. We received a grant some time back from actually 2 entities, that'd be McElroy Trust and the Waterloo Community Foundation, to come up with a conceptual plan and cost estimate for renovations in Lincoln Park. We're in the middle of that process now. In fact, May 8th at the Sportsplex, we're inviting the public out to see those preliminary plans, 5:30 p.m. for all who are interested. These 2 things are quite similar. They're both asking your permission and the council to apply, one to McElroy Trust and one to Blackhawk County Gaming Association for funding for that project. We have a number of other grant possibilities. I've been in touch with at least 3 other entities, but I'm not to the point where I can come to you with those yet. But we're looking for additional funding.
Do we have a ballpark figure in mind on what the total
ballpark figure is? $1 million.
Okay.
And that'll become more clear once we have the detailed cost estimate, but it should be close to that.
Thank you.
Madam Mayor.
We should mention that there's organizations such as Irish Fest that have really asked for this project. There's people that really want Lincoln Park to be.
We've had a variety of
little bit.
organizations contact us and ask if we had plans to improve the park. And yes, they're definitely among them. Main Street would be among them. We started with stakeholder meetings, so we identified about 20 to 25 key stakeholders, all people who wanted to see improvements.
Good, thank you.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Questions? Yes.
Paul, could you go over how, I saw something that there was a meeting coming up, how folks can give their input on what they would like to see at Lincoln Park?
Sure. At that meeting, again, it's 5:30 p.m. May 8th in the multipurpose room at the Sportsplex. There'll be a presentation first. The consultant will kind of do a walkthrough with a kind of a flyover view of the park and explain what they're planning to do or what their initial plans are. And then we'll open the floor to the public for questions and comments and suggestions.
Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Other questions? If not, Mayor Clerk, Ms. Clerk, would you just do the roll call,
Yes.
please? Thank you.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Juon?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Shimp?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Okay. Would someone take number 7 and number 8, please?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Item number 7 is adopting a resolution to concur with the determination of the city planner for the proposed change to the approved site plan for a 15,500 square foot expansion to Advanced Heat Treat Corp. located at 2825 Midport Boulevard is minor and shall be approved as a minor site plan amendment within the M2P, I just lost my screen, it's coming back, M2P Planned Industrial District. And item number 8 is adopting a resolution approving the Economic Development Assistance Contract with Advanced Heat Treat Corp. of Waterloo, Iowa, and the Iowa Economic Development Authority for High Quality Jobs Program tax credit component incentives, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute said document.
Second.
Okay, discussion? If not, roll call, please, Madam Clerk.
Mrs. Juon?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Shimp?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Okay, would someone take, please, number 9?
Mr. Mayor, or Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
It's a mouthful. Yes. Yes.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving the award of the bid to Aspro Incorporated, Waterloo, Iowa, in the amount of $7,168,904.23, and approving the contract, bonds, and certificate of insurance in conjunction with the fiscal year 2018 Street Reconstruction Program Division 1 plus Alternate A plus Division 2 and 3, contract number 944, and authorize mayor and city clerk to execute said documents.
Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion?
Madam Pro Tem,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to amend this resolution to select the alternate B bid for Kroll Incorporated for the concrete versus the asphalt paving.
Second.
So let me clarify, you're changing you're amending it to take the other bid, right, in its entirety?
Yes.
And there's the second
I
to that
second.
amendment? Discussion on the amendment.
Why? Madam, go ahead, sorry.
No, I was just going to say there has been some contact as far as this discussion, cement versus asphalt. And, you know, for me, I've talked with Councilman Jacobs about this, but I firmly believe that from a standpoint of the city staff has come up with this as far as the asphalt aspect of it. And I understand what Councilman Jacobs' concerns are as far as discussing it with him. But at this point in time, I don't feel that I can support this amendment that he is coming forward with. So,
Thank you. Mr. Morrissey?
Yes, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. I would just ask if Eric Thorson, if you could speak to what this would mean.
Okay, Mr. Thorson? Thank you.
Eric Thorson, Senior. There's several components to this. First of all, the contract award it says a contract will be awarded to the qualified bidder submitting the lowest bid. So I guess the attorney would have to comment whether the amendment would even be appropriate at this point. Also, there's other factors that play into our bid award besides the lowest price. The low bidder submitted documents indicating that they would have 12.4% of the work go to a women's business enterprise and 5.5% would go to a minority business enterprise. Those are some parts of these specifications. The other bidder did not submit any documentation indicating that they would give any of that work to either of those enterprises. So we'd have to assume that would be 0. Also, where the specifications read that we'd be, virtue of the statute of authority, a preference would be given to products and provisions grown and co-produced in the state of Iowa, and preference would be given to local domestic labor in the construction of the improvement. This particular bidder is a local contractor. All the subcontractors are local contractors, most in Waterloo, and so they employ people from this metro area and also buy their materials from metro areas. So those are also important considerations that need to be taken into account.
Thank you.
Again, let's point out the difference is close to $500,000.
It's about $470,000.
Yep. Thank you.
Madam.
Mr. Oh, I'm sorry.
Just as a follow-up to that, and thank you, Mr. Thorson, for the reasons that Eric has talked about, hearing what you mentioned as far as that cost, I cannot support this amendment.
Mr. Jacobs?
Madam Pro Tem. So I think the thing that the city should be looking at, or taxpayers should be looking at, and I think that we are here to look out for the taxpayers, and I think we want the best bang for the buck for us all. And I think regardless of who you look at, if you research a lot of folks, a lot of things I've looked at, more or less that asphalt is a fine product. But in this situation, concrete actually turns out that it lasts approximately 1.5 times longer than asphalt. And so in this case, the increased cost would be about 6.6% for this paving project. So for a cost of only 6.6% more, we would get a product that would last 1.5 times longer. So I think that's what the taxpayers would really appreciate, is a product that's actually a permanent street, and that many people that I have talked to have documented and told me, and you can go on the internet and talk to the contractors yourself. I've talked to a retired DOT individual as well, who actually was more aggressive in those estimates, but at least 1.5 times longer a concrete street will last in terms as compared to an asphalt street. And so I think it's time we give that a chance. We see how that works out for the city, and for such a small amount more, I think we would have a longer lasting product and a more quality product for our taxpayers.
Anyone else? Yes, Ms. Klein.
My thoughts on this are, we've heard people come up to the microphone and talk about how the streets are patched by the city, how the multiple people stand around a little hole and don't clean it out properly and throw the patch in and then expect the patch to last, and it doesn't. And so that's the one thing I have about maintenance of asphalt. And that's on the city, that's on us. I also think that when the cost of both products gets so close, that to go with the longer lasting product is probably the best way. Also, I do have a question. The city requires that we replace our sidewalks with concrete. I mean, in some ways, they have a preference for concrete. In some ways, they don't. And I just don't understand it all. But when I looked at the numbers and I thought, this is very close. Had the difference been 40%, I would have said, yes, let's go with the asphalt. But it's 6%, and you get another 1.5 times the length of that life. I'm responsible for the taxpayers' money. Every dime that comes out of their pocket feels like it's my dime.
Other comments?
Yes, I do have a question for Eric from a standpoint of, I haven't talked with Eric about this, but I have a concern when I hear we're replacing asphalt with concrete. Are there other costs that are going to be associated with that as you're taking the asphalt out or doing the overlay? Do you have to have curbs and gutters when you're pouring this cement? There's a lot of questions that I have from a standpoint of switching over from asphalt to the concrete. I don't know, Eric, can you speak to that at all?
Eric Thorson, Jr. Actually, we bid alternate products here, both asphalt or concrete, and they're designed according to the formulas that are out there for both products, and both products are permanent pavement. They both are lasting about relatively the same amount of time. We've got that proof right out on our own streets. We have 20 and 25-year concrete and asphalt, and they're both performing very well. We would be happy with either product. They're good products, but the asphalt does tend to have lower maintenance costs. If you look at some of the comparisons that are out there, there's far fewer cracks and joints to fill, so that saves our Public Works Department time with that type of work. Also, when it comes to rehab the product, asphalt is a little cheaper to rehab than concrete. So I think there are some savings in other factors too.
One of the things that I just heard is you said they have the relative same lifespan. And I'm hearing Councilman Jacobs say 1.5 times as long to justify the additional $400,000 or whatever. But I'm hearing you say something not completely different, but relatively the amount of time that they actually last. So I guess, Councilman Jacobs, from a standpoint of the 1.5 times that you are talking about, where are you getting that data from?
Well, I've looked at several articles in researching this. I've also talked to a former Iowa DOT official about the estimates and the longevity of both products. And I think they're both fine products. I just want our bang for our buck. I want the best product we can. And I can understand, a lot of what I've researched was, asphalt's a much cheaper product. But in this case, it's almost the same price. We're only 6.6% away. So concrete was always looked at as the better product. But, if it was half price, I'd be all for it because, I don't want to spend any more money than we have to. But then again, I don't want to have to replace roads sooner than I want to either. Jerome, if you just think about this in a common sense way, I don't see gutters, the curbs and everything made out of asphalt. They're made out of concrete. 63 is made out of concrete. We're doing university with concrete. Interstates are made out of concrete. I don't see asphalt interstates. So a choice might be made here, but I just think for the longevity of the product, common sense should tell us that a concrete should last longer for us in Waterloo. That's why I think we should take a look at it.
And I understand your comments, Councilman, but I live on a street that's asphalt. I've been on it for 20 some odd years. Had the asphalt overlay done, and yeah, I suppose concrete would be better, but my concern, what I'm hearing here is we have an expert who is saying that we have a relative amount of similarity between the two. You're doing some research that is giving some other information, and I just cannot go with that information at this point in time.
That is fine.
Madam
And
Mayor.
let me just state, I think we've all heard a lot of input, and I've heard from the concrete people that they last longer. I've heard from the asphalt people that they last the same. So it's really hard to base this, and this discussion has been going on for years within the city hall. I know the asphalt versus concrete, so I appreciate the discussion. Yes.
And I was going to say, I'm not sure if Councilman Morrissey was on the council at the time, but we had a work session. Mm-hmm. Were you on the council then, Pat, regarding this specific? And we had representatives come in from the concrete side of the conversation and the asphalt both. And yes. Yeah, I thought it would become much clearer after that, and I wouldn't say it was. I talked to council members from a variety of different communities around eastern Iowa, and it really seems to be what each community believes in. Some of them swear by concrete, some of them swear by asphalt. I do know that we have representatives here, I think, from some of the different entities involved, and I'd certainly love to hear their input too, because I am not an engineer, so this is somewhat out of my wheelhouse, but for $500,000, whatever it is we're talking about, I'd like to make sure we're doing the right thing.
Madam.
Are there people in the audience that would, representing the different organizations?
Madam.
Okay. Oh,
Mayor
can you hold off just a second? Okay. Councilman Morrissey.
Yes, well, okay, I mean, we're talking almost $500,000, and I don't think our budget session was too long ago, and this council made a vote, and one of the primary focuses on that budget that we approved was getting the best bang for our buck. It included cuts that I believed were totally unnecessary, that could have been handled in a different way. But it was all about the dollar at that time, and when percentages were brought up at that point in time, like they're being brought up for people who are proposing this amendment, we weren't looking at the proposals, we were looking at the dollar amount. Mm-hmm. So you can, you make your argument here using this statistic, then you make your argument here using this statistic, whichever comes to your benefit of the argument and what you're trying to pass or get voted in. And I find that pretty disingenuous, quite frankly. But you know, I drive 380 North quite a bit, and 380 North has, or 218 North, I mean, going up towards Mesa City area, that has quite a bit of asphalt on it as far as being an interstate, and it's very smooth, very well traveled, and it is a good product. We've had that argument, as Councilman Schmidt has said before. We've had information presented to us which gets down to relying on your experts in your community. And that's what we're doing here. And I don't want to see us get into a situation, and that's why I'm asking City Attorney Zellifer to step in here, because basically what we're doing is we're going contrary to what state law tells us we're supposed to be doing. We're supposed to be taking the lowest bid, and we're not in this regard. We're also not following the guidelines of minority employment and jobs, which could get us in trouble. So do we want to pass an amendment that's going to get us into a world of trouble? I say the arguments are there to say no to this amendment. If for no other reason, then we don't need to get in some kind of situation where we're going to be sued.
Madam Mayor?
Thank you.
Pro Tem.
Let me follow up, if I may, first with Staff Rudy Jones, because I think he has something he'd like to add at this point.
Rudy Jones, Community Development Director. In lieu of the fact that we don't have an acting contract compliance officer, I kind of fill that role when need be. This particular project occasionally would have had the review of the compliance officer to make sure that the compliance program was followed, and being that this particular project did not even have a solicitation form submitted from Kroll Company, I would not be able to recommend awarding it to that company based on that fact.
Based on the fact that they did not come?
They did not submit the document that asked for if there was a solicitation or if there were going to be MB or WB participation.
Okay. Thank you. Mr. Zellifer, would you like to add anything to that and the request of Mr. Morrissey? No? Okay. Okay.
I would like to make a request of you to remind the council to not bring up motives in votes, motives in our behavior here. It makes me very uncomfortable that that is brought up.
Okay. Valid concern that
it is.
Went right over my head. So thank you. Remind everyone to not mention what the motives are for the vote. With that said, is there any professional in the office, in the audience, to either address the asphalt or the concrete issue? Because we're hearing both sides of these stories.
Milt Dokovich, 1967, Kitty Hawk Drive, Waterloo, president of ASPRO. A lot of the comments I was going to make have already been made up here. It is a structurally equal alternate. There isn't any question about it. They've been letting that alternate for 34 years. They've been monitoring the successful results of that construction, positive. Again, we're a local contractor with local employees. We have local subcontractors with local employees. It's $471,000 worth of difference. Another comment I heard as part of this discussion is that we can't handle truck traffic. We were hired last summer by a national truck stop chain to install the paving at the Love's Truck Stop in the northwest corner of Highway 20 and 63. That's full depth asphalt, 18-wheelers on it all day and all night, and there isn't any problem. And if anybody has a question about the structures that the City of Waterloo Engineering Department puts together, there is less structure on that 18-wheeler parking lot in the back than there is on your minor and major arterial streets in the City of Waterloo. There's more thickness to those streets than there are to that truck stop. The Road Ranger truck stop in Elk Run Heights, Iowa, that's asphalt. It was our project. It's 30 years old. It's in fine shape, and nothing has been done to it. Something I learned tonight are the irregularities in that other bid. that other bid is non-responsive. I think you've heard that several times. They did not comply with your specifications, and had there been a contract compliance officer, it should have been thrown out.
Question. Thank
Are
you.
there any questions?
Yeah,
for
let's
me?
see. Are there any questions?
Madam
Okay, yes.
Councilman, go ahead.
Madam Pro Tem, I have a question for Eric, so.
Okay.
Okay, no questions.
The only question I guess I had is, can you speak at all to the sub-level compacting, if that has an impact on asphalt versus concrete as far as what goes in underneath before the product is laid? That was one of the things I heard from one of the other communities is they've discovered if they don't put rock and some other stuff down, again, I'm out of my element, but they discovered that either one of the products didn't last as long.
Yeah, we do a really good job here. 90% of the streets, maybe more than that, are drain tiled, which drain tile has a huge cost benefit as far as getting that water away. All have a rock base. We do a real good job here in Waterloo, and I'd say that'd be either product.
Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions of Mr. Dakovich? Okay, thank you. Any professionals in the audience to represent the concrete side? Okay. Other comments from council or?
I think Forrest wanted to go.
I think we'll, Mr. Delvaux, that would be appropriate for you to address the full amendment, or the full motion, not the amendment, as I'm advised. So if you can just hold on a second, you'll have a moment, okay?
I'm not sure what I can talk about, but I'll talk about what I know. Forrest Delvaux, 1725 Huntington Road.
Mr. Delvaux, would you please sit down and you'll have a chance to talk after we have the amendment addressed.
Sorry, I thought you were done.
No, I'm sorry. Okay, other discussion on the amendment? Yes.
So my question is, if this is apparently an illegal bid, why was it then brought to council? So why would this even be coming to us if we didn't even have the parameters in place? We really need to know that.
Yeah. Mr. Thorson, would you like to address that?
Thorson, if I understand the question correctly, the low bidder, Aspro's bid, is in order, and there's nothing illegal about that bid. The second bidder...
I think his question is, why did it come to us if we are obligated to accept the low bid? Is that your question?
Now, with the equal opportunity
and women-owned
document that Mr. Jones talked about, if we didn't have that, why would that bid even be brought to council?
Oh, Aspro did have that. So they did meet all the qualifications.
No,
the other bidder was not a qualified bidder then?
So why would we not just have one bid on this, Eric?
That is the bid tab from the bids that were written at the time read at the time the bids were read a week ago. So you have to list both of those. Until we get those documents and have a chance to review them, we don't know that those things are missing.
Okay.
You have to open it to find that out.
Does that answer everyone's question?
Not really.
Okay, let me, Mr. Thorson, I don't think we're quite through yet, and this is for my education as well. These two bids came to us because they were the bids received.
That's correct.
The fact that one was not an eligible or a qualified bidder did not become apparent until after this was published? Is that what I'm hearing? No.
No, the specifications require that a certain amount of paperwork come with each bid, and that comes to us in a sealed envelope.
Okay.
The clerk opens those and reads those bids, basically just reading the numbers that are submitted, and then those bid packets are given to the engineering department. We give copies to Rudy, and we review those bids and make a recommendation, which is what we've done for tonight. So the fact that there were materials missing from Kroll's bids wasn't apparent until we reviewed the bids after they were open.
After they were published in the agenda?
At this moment? At this very moment, we're discovering this?
No, I think we knew it before, but was it after it was published in the agenda that we found that out?
Well, we made our recommendation based on the review of the bids.
I think the question is, why are both of these bids on the agenda then? Is that the question?
We didn't put both of them on the agenda tonight. There's only one bid on the agenda, and that's the low bid from Aspro.
So the only thing on the agenda is to award the contract to Aspro. Last week when the bids were read, both Aspro and Kroll bids were read, and then after Monday, and after the bid opening, that's when engineering reviewed and then submitted their agenda item, I believe,
Madam Mayor
on
Pro Tem,
Wednesday.
to that then, just I think it was last week, we had a bid that was on there and it clearly stated that this bid could not be considered because of this. So
That bid was rejected due to untimely filing. So that when my office opens up, when we receive in the bids, we do those preliminary checks, like make sure that they're timely filed. So all the bids have to be turned into our office by 1 o'clock. We timestamp them to ensure that they're received on time. So at that point, that one was received after 1 o'clock. So we just noted that we received the bid and that it was rejected due to untimely filing.
And please remember that the engineer's office is only recommending one. They are recommending just.
So Madam Mayor
Yes,
Pro
sir.
Tem, what I'm hearing here then is that Councilman Jacobs' amendment is actually not valid simply because of the contract itself. Is that correct? It's a question. If we cannot approve it based off of the non-compliance aspect of it, how can it even
It's not even an eligible alternative, right?
That's what I'm asking. I'm just asking. I don't know.
So, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
Then
yes.
I would ask if or entertain to have the amendment recalled.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, before we go there, I would like to say I believe it is valid. The low bid is for asphalt. The low bid for contract is the other one. Or for concrete is the other one.
But there's other paperwork that I think was not submitted that makes it non-compliant.
Well, that's a 12th hour thing that.
No, it's not.
Funny.
Maybe 12th hour for us. Certainly not.
Should never be 12th hour for us.
But it's not for the engineering department either.
Madam Pro Tem,
help me out here.
We're going to go ahead and we're going to rescind the amendment. And any further discussion on this will have to be done offline because I don't feel this circle is productive for the city, citizens or the city. So we're going to have to talk about this offline going forward.
I appreciate you withdrawing the motion. May I also mention that I think we've asked as a council, asked for a work session on the asphalt versus concrete, and I think it's very timely that we have that. Also, the contract compliance issue is maybe something we need to learn more about. And Rudy, if you could maybe address that with us at some point, that would be very helpful.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
So I haven't heard that the contract was not I haven't heard that the bid was not in compliance. I haven't heard that from Mr. Jones or any city staff. So is there a city staff?
Point of order.
Just let's let Mr. Jones address
Rudy
that
Jones,
comment.
Community Development Director, acting as the Contract Compliance Officer. I would recommend rejecting Kroll's bid based on the fact that there is no evidence of compliance with our Waterloo Contract Compliance Program.
Okay. Yes, Mr. Morrissey.
I just was making a point of order that the amendment has already been rescinded by the maker of the motion, so I would call the question.
Before we do that, we have a couple people. Is that a motion to withdraw the amendment? Or is it's just an act, right? So what you're calling the question on is the main motion?
Yes.
I think before we do that, there's a couple people in the audience that would like to make comments, and I assured them that once we got rid of the amendment, we would do that. So is there anyone that would like to address this? Yes, sir.
So since you folks have set the guidelines of what I can talk about, as a citizen and taxpayer, a person who pays for this project, are you going to allow me to address concrete versus asphalt? Or are you going to tell me that is not to be discussed at this meeting?
If you would like to address that, because it is relevant to the motion, certainly.
Thank you.
And all I'm doing, Mr. Delvaux, is repeating the guidelines and the rules that are publicly stated in the front of the agenda.
Okay, you can give me back my 30 seconds. Forest Dillaboo, 1725 Huntington Road. I was at the meeting where asphalt and concrete people were here. It was well discussed. The DOT was here. And what I got out of that meeting was concrete will last longer than asphalt. Asphalt, it was admitted that after, I believe it was 15 years, it needed to be resealed or recoated. So to be a fair bid, you would need to add those two together to get a fair bid of what the citizens of Waterloo are going to have to pay for. I have a street in front of my house, I believe it's 40 years old, was concrete, and it's only had one overlay. It's in pretty good shape right now. They do have to mill the high spots occasionally, but I think once, maybe twice, they've done that. I feel that concrete is a much better product. If you're to drive around any housing development in the city of Waterloo, you don't see a housing development full of asphalt driveways. They're all concrete. It's definitely a better product. I've heard council people ask, can we have a work session on this? Probably 2 months ago. People have been dragging their feet and not letting it happen until here we are, D-Day, the 12th hour, and now you're saying, we got to vote tonight. This is wrong. This is wrong for the citizens. It's wrong for the council that have asked for this work session, and it's unfair. This comes very close to bid rigging. You heard one of the councilmen ask, why do we only get one bid for asphalt? We're back here the same way with concrete or street reconstruction. You are locking us into one bidder. It's not right. You get more bidders, you get a lower price, you get better competition, you get better product. But you're locking us into one. That's not what we need. We need competition. If we were to take a concrete bid this year, I can assure you that there will be more concrete bidders next year. Cedar Falls gets multiple concrete bids. I've talked with them. They get multiple concrete bids, and most generally, those concrete bids are lower than the asphalt bid because they have competition, because they have people that want it. They do all of their overlay with asphalt, which is what we would continue to do.
Okay.
You need to think of us citizens, not just a couple business people. And
For all citizens
professional
as well,
people,
Mr. Delavu.
You asked for
Thank you.
professional people before citizens. I think citizens ought to come first. Thank you.
Thank you. Anyone else that wants to address and have any comments different than those shared by Mr. Delavu?
My name is Sam Neal. I live at 514 Kingbard Boulevard. I have been blessed for 21 or 2 years with asphalt street in front of my house. Within 5 years in the 400 block, that asphalt was failing. The city has been there multiple times to fill the holes. I invite you to drive it today or tomorrow and see on the south side how rough it is and how beat up it is and how many potholes are on that. The city blessed me with no curb or gutter on that street. The asphalt washed out right in front of my driveway. I called the city. They don't come out and fix it. My grass in front of the street washed out because there was no curb. And they came out and filled it with asphalt so the dirt wouldn't wash away. I guess I sound bitter, but I do believe that concrete is the better thing. I think we're looking at it short term rather than long term. I think we need to look at it in a way that do a fair cost benefit analysis, not necessarily a government cost benefit analysis, but a real, what they teach you in college to do on a cost benefit analysis, and you'll find that concrete over 50 years is far cheaper, and when you have concrete, even Highway 218 is overlaid on top of concrete, they overlay the asphalt, not on top of asphalt. So I think we got to talk apples to apples. It may be too late this year, but it has to be a discussion that is done and done right. And I believe in competition. I don't believe there's truly competition for the streets here. It shouldn't take 5 months to do Fletcher Boulevard. It shouldn't take that long ever, and it's because we have one contractor that is too thin in equipment. We need to take care of the citizens. I'm not looking forward to Kingsbard being redone because I have to walk to my house. My driveway is going to be plugged up, and I'm 70 years old. I don't want to carry groceries 100 yards. and take 6 months. I think we need to think of the citizen. We need to come up with a system that benefits all. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, sir. Okay, any other comments?
Madam Mayor? Yes, ma'am. I would like to amend the resolution. I would like to amend it to reopen the bids, reopen bidding on this project.
Is there a second to that? Okay, can I ask Mr. Thorson what that would entail? Eric?
Eric Thorson, city engineer, we'd have to go back and re-advertise and put it back out. There'd be some process. We'd have to come back to council and reset a date of public hearing and bid opening and all of that.
And that would delay the project by about how long?
Probably 30 days at least.
Okay,
In view of the contradictory reports, in view of the feelings of our taxpayers, just in view of all the discussion tonight, I think it's worth it to go back and encourage more bidders to step forward.
And how would that take care of the contract compliance with the other bidder not responding to many of the
I'm
issues?
saying open it wide open for other bidders.
And we have not done that?
Eric Thorson, Senior. We, every time we put out a project from the engineering department, our plans and specifications go out to 3 bid agencies, plan holding agencies. If I can find the information here. First of all, of course, it's advertised in the paper. And it also goes to McGraw-Hill Construction Dodge, which is out of Hot Springs, Arkansas. They cover all of the Midwest, all of Iowa, probably all of the country. Master Builders of Iowa in Des Moines, that covers all of Iowa. Reed Construction Data, they're out of Norcross, Georgia. Again, they cover all of Iowa, all the Midwest, and much of the country. So our plans and specs are out there about as far reaching as we know how to get them. I mean, I don't know how to get them out any further than that. And most all contractors belong to these agencies so that they can review projects that come up all across the state and the country.
Eric?
Yes, sir.
Madam Pro Tem, Mayor Pro Tem. Eric, when that gets sent out, does that include both asphalt and concrete?
Eric Thorson, the plans and specs include that information in total for both products, and those plans and specifications are sent out in full. So everybody gets the same thing, which is the bidding of the alternates.
So that process, Madam Mayor Pro
Yes.
Tem, that process has been already done, and the results were, we got 2 bids, one of which did not meet the requirements as we've been told, and the other one, the only other one, was from Asbro. Is that correct?
Yes, yes.
Even though this was done through those 3 different agencies that provided this information to, we don't know for sure how many, but umpteen number of potential bidders had access to this.
And I'm not sure what has occurred that would change the results.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
And I'm also like to say, remember, I totally agree we need to have a study. We've had it, 4 years ago? It certainly merits having that discussion again. Right now, we're talking about close to $500,000 out of compliance and a delay in getting the streets paved.
Madam
Yes,
Mayor
ma'am.
Pro Tem. I would like to have that bid reopened because I think it shows that Waterloo is seriously looking at both products, seriously going to give everybody at the table a chance, and with a 6% differential, I think we can get closer than that. I really do.
I, like Mr. Morrissey, I'm kind of amazed. During budget times, $500,000 was a lot of money. Now it's not, and I don't understand the difference, but.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
A quick question, I don't know if this would be for Mr. Zellifer, but if we were to reopen the bids, wouldn't that put Aspro and or Kroll, but wouldn't that put them at a distinct disadvantage, or their bid is now public, and so I'm Joe the asphalt guy, so I'm gonna bid and I'm gonna come in $5 under that. I mean, it just seems like for this specific project, you know, this conversation is a great conversation, but maybe should have taken place 2 months ago, especially with the compliance issue. I don't see how we do that legally, but I am not an engineer and I'm not an attorney.
Mr. Zellifer.
Thank you. Dave Zellifer, City Attorney. This doesn't seem to be so much of a legal issue as it does a policy issue, and I hope I'm not stepping onto the policy aspect of this. But here's the facts. This bid went out to almost every concrete company and almost every asphalt company in the Midwest. They all got it. We're not going to change that. There's a difference of about $500,000. Some people think it's a lot, some people think it's not. The bid specifications in terms of minority competition and women competition was only offered by one party. That's significant in today's world. If we accepted a contract that didn't make that, we could put ourselves in legal liability. I don't know what ASPRO would do. That's up to them. But we certainly don't have much to defend ourselves in that matter. This is a part of the modern world we deal with now. If you don't like it, tough. Those are the rules, that's the law. Secondly, ASPRO appears to be using a lot of local people. I mean, and the other company's from New Hampton, which isn't that far away, but I always thought this council wanted to ensure that local businesses and local citizens in the Cedar Valley got these jobs. So as far as the
Mayor Pro Tem.
This has nothing to do with law. This is a soapbox.
That's exactly what I was going to say. I was going to say that's not the legal aspect of it, but the rest of it was. And you know, I can't put myself in ASPRO's shoes. I don't know what they're going to do. But as far as this goes, it is legal. There was one thing on the agenda today. I think we should probably just say yes or no, vote for it.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem? Yes. I think that there is a perception out there that Waterloo sometimes does not welcome concrete bidders. That's what I've been told. It's what I've heard. And so rejecting both of these bids tonight and reopening the whole thing might let other companies know we welcome bids.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
ASPRO has gone along with the expectations of a bidder. They have done their diligence, their due diligence in making sure that they submitted this according to the guidelines and according to what was required of them. They came in as the low bidder, $500,000 below. And we're now having this argument and this disagreement, and it's, I guess if I was ASPRO and I had my bid rejected, even though I was the low bidder and I did all the due diligence, I would be very offended. I can't see doing that to this company, this local company. We are going to lose at a minimum of 30 days of time to be working on the projects that need to get done through resolution number 9. There's a lot of negatives that go into this. Opening something up for more bids when everybody that has had an opportunity to bid on this has been given that opportunity, to me is just absolutely an affront to our local ASPRO company and everybody and anything that they use. We need to buy local. We need to support local. And that's what we're doing here. I totally reject any further idea of amendments, and referring to Mr. Our city attorney as being on a soapbox, to me, is the same kind of thing that I just was accused of with a statement that I made with my own perception of something being ingenuous, you know, and I would ask that you call attention to that too, Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
I would add what Mr. Schmidt said, that maybe we would be putting Aspro at an unfair disadvantage. Since they've already bid, any competition is going to know what Aspro's bid.
Madam Mayor?
And it makes it unfair to them.
I just have a problem with saying that anyone is the low bid when they're the only bidder on that product.
But that was the company's choice.
It's
Mrs.
concrete
Klein.
and asphalt. It's not the
But
same
that was
thing.
the choice of the asphalt and the concrete companies that received the bid. It was their choice not to bid. It wasn't our choice. I think we'd all welcome more competition. But they got the bid and they decided not to respond. That's not our fault, Mrs. Klein.
Well, it might be if we have, in the past, fostered an environment of unfriendliness towards some companies.
Call the question.
Okay, that's a motion, Mr. Morrissey. Have you got a second for the motion to call the question?
I don't know.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay, call the question, motion to call the question. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
Aye.
Okay, anyone?
Aye.
Sorry, sir, we have
I
a,
voted no on that.
so there were 2 noes?
To call the question.
Okay,
Is this my amendment?
it was to call the question. It was to call the question.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, it was to call the question on the amendment that
Yes.
Councilwoman Klein had
Yes.
made, which was seconded.
Yes, I'm sorry.
'Cause it sounds like everybody's discussed that at this point, unless somebody else is going to say something about the amendment.
There's several people that have been trying to get to the microphone, but we've never stopped talking to allow them. So let's hear from them.
Okay. I'll agree.
But then we just call the question.
Yeah, we just called the
We
question.
called the
need to
question
vote.
and we voted on calling the question. So now we're back to
I
her
I
amendment.
rescind calling the question.
Just voted.
Oh,
We just
We
voted.
just voted on it, so now we have to call it.
But what was the vote?
We already voted on it.
was the vote?
We don't have to vote on it well, yeah, we do.
It was a
We have to vote on the amendment now.
It was a 5-2 vote to call the question. So now either
We have
so
to.
it'd be cleaner if we called the question, if we voted on the amendment. Otherwise, I think we'd have to reconsider calling the question.
Let's have one
Okay,
more.
so we are going, sorry, we will still get to you. There's still an opportunity. We are going to vote on Ms. Klein's amendment to suspend accepting or awarding a bid this evening and sending back out the documents requesting bids.
Yes, actually, it was reject the bids tonight and reopen the bidding process.
So start another RFP.
Would it well, I don't know if it'd have to be another RFP.
It would have to be.
It would have to be another bid document, whatever. So that's our motion.
Well, that would be the process.
This vote will be by roll call. So, Madam Clerk.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Point of order.
I'm sorry, yeah.
The amendment was to reopen the bids. That's all I heard that was seconded. There was none of this other language that was added to it.
Let's clarify the motion. What was the motion in your mind, Mrs. Klein?
I thought it was to reject the bids tonight and reopen the bidding for this project.
That is, you're doing 2 motions at once, Madam Mayor Pro Tem, because we already have the motion on the table to accept the bid. So if she's
This
making
is
an
amending
amendment,
it.
it's to the main motion.
Right.
So the amendment has to be either she wants to reopen the bids or she doesn't, because we already have the motion on the table to approve number 9 as stated. You can't do 2 things in one motion.
Yeah, because you wouldn't want to refuse all bids when that will be the motion, the main motion. So you want
More bids. I want to reopen it for more bids.
Or let me just throw this out there. Would it be cleaner if you just voted down the contract, and then it would have to be rebid again? And I don't know, maybe Eric wants to clarify that, but there's no bids to reject tonight. Tonight, we're just awarding the contract. Because the bids were read last week.
You could just vote down
To
the
reopen,
recommendation.
so the bid should or the amendment should just say to reopen bidding.
I think she's saying we don't need an amendment. We just vote down the
almost-
main, aren't you?
I don't know, I'm kind of getting out of my clerk role here. And I don't want to do that. But
Mr. Zellifer, maybe he can.
well,
Can you make this
I guess what
simpler
I'm
for us?
thinking is if there's no bids to be opened tonight, they're open last Monday. And so if we're reopening the bid process, you would probably need to reject Aspro's bid and have it rebid. Is that essentially what you're trying to achieve? To go through the process again, essentially?
Yes.
Okay.
So she wants to start another RFP, is what you're requesting, Mrs. Klein.
Correct.
Yes.
That's right, okay.
Mr. Zellifer, would you guide us through this?
No, I think what I said earlier, Dave Zellifer, city attorney, was let's just vote on the motion the main motion, and if that's turned down, then we move on to it's rejected, we start the process over again. Right now, we have a motion to accept it, and then Ms. Klein made a motion to reject it. They kind of conflict with each other. And then if it is rejected, there will automatically be another RFP, and we'll start all over again. So I think the natural course would just take its way.
Would you withdraw your amendment, please?
No.
So what is your amendment going to do? Different
Reopen the bidding.
But that's what voting against the recommendation on the main motion will do.
Then let's vote for it. Let's vote now.
Vote for what?
Let's vote my amendment. Just get it done.
So what happens to the main motion?
Depends on what happens with my motion.
Okay. We have an amendment to reject Aspro's proposal, reject engineering department's recommendation, and reopen bids. And I do believe I'm going to call on the public that's patiently been waiting to address this. Would you like to?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to speak again. As one who uses a wheelchair year-round from Valley, I go up and down the streets, all kinds of weather. Rain, snow, sleet, ice, doesn't matter. Even sunshine. But the thing is that, well, the gentleman from Aspro may have a very good product. It doesn't do very good for like curb cuts, for access for curb cuts, where they try to patch their curb cuts when the snow plows damage them. I mean, those asphalt curb cut replacements aren't very good for a person in a manual wheelchair like myself. And that's my comment. Thank you.
Thank you. I believe there's another person. Yes.
I'm not 100% sure.
Name and address, please.
Oh, John Sherbin, 1715 Robin Road. I'm not 100% sure this, how many people or minorities or whatever we have to have is in writing any place. That's a federal law. Kroll Concrete is a very large company. So is Aspro. I'm not picking on either one particularly. But I got a sneaking idea Kroll knows what's going on too. Did we ask them? Did we ask them what their compliance ratio was or anything? Or is this just assumed that, one of those pieces of paper we get?
Well, I think we should be able to assume that they know how to fill out the bid spec sheets and respond.
Is it a law that we have to fill that paper out? That's the question. See,
that's up to our contract compliance.
But see, we're heading right down to a big issue. Now, Aspro does good, except that they did my street. They stopped in April. They would come in and tore it up. In September, they come in and paved it because I bitched down here every meeting, which everybody down here can tell you. I was down here every week. How come they didn't? What happened? They had some important things. They got pulled off of jobs because they don't do the little ones first when they start them. They break them and they get paid. They get paid X amount of bucks for breaking and starting the jobs. We got major problems with a lot of our contractors, not just Aspro. But as far as the compliance, how many people do we have to have in Waterloo, are minorities or women or whatever, that work in our city. Are we compliant in the police department? Are we compliant in the fire? What's the, we're picking beans out of someplace looking for a reason to prove that we're smarter than everybody else. We just need to get the job done and save money. Everybody knows that concrete lasts longer, but they won't admit it because we're not making any money off from it.
That's an assumption that
No,
is
that's
really
not an
unfair.
assumption. That is a fact.
I don't know that
You're
concrete
not supposed to be
is
arguing with me. You're not an
I'm not
expert.
supposed
You're not an expert.
And neither are you.
I am. I worked in that business for a lot of years. So I'd appreciate it if you don't interrupt me. This isn't my minutes. So I'm saying what I think, not what you think or some of these other guys think, because they're all smart people. And if I need to know something and I go to ask one of these gentlemen, I'm going to find out what he knows. If I really want to know what's going on, go down to the bottom and ask him. That's how I knew my street got tore up and set forever. And that's what really torques me off. We don't take care of the little guys down here very well. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we have an amendment on the floor. Oh, I'm sorry.
No
Yes,
problem.
sir.
Good evening, Josh Wilson, 170 Southeast Kellerman Lane in Waukee, Iowa. Although I'm from Waterloo, although right now I really don't know where I am based on the discussions going on here. I think everyone's confused. I have a few issues I'd like to raise, and you don't have to answer it if you don't want to, but from a legal perspective, if you were to reject the bids tonight, wouldn't that mean that Aspro couldn't rebid when you opened the bids again? Is that correct? Because I think if you reject a company tonight, I don't think they'd be allowed to bid again because you said no to their initial bid. I could be wrong there, but that's something you would want to check with your legal team on. Second of all, I have lived in Waterloo. I don't currently, but I've lived here. I grew up here. The roads are bad. I think everyone would agree. I'm looking into a dentist appointment tomorrow. I think I chipped my tooth on a couple potholes just driving to City Hall tonight. But I want to read, don't take my word for it. I want to go to the most trusted name in news, and I read some articles from the Courier. This is when a president visited Waterloo in 2004. The president said, quote, "The mayor didn't ask me for some great advice, but I'm going to give it to him. Fill the potholes." Then I have several, countless Courier archive stories of this same debate you're having tonight that has happened year after year after year, and citizens are always upset with the roads. And I just think you guys are so confused tonight. No offense, I don't mean that derogatively, but everyone seems to be kind of on a different page. Full disclosure, I have no preference on concrete or asphalt, but I believe that it might be prudent, given the circus that has just occurred, to maybe table this until you guys can have conversations with city staff, maybe even bring in some other experts. But I think you need to have a real conversation. Do you want to do concrete or do you want to do Aspro, or asphalt? I'm sorry, Aspro's the company. But there's so much confusion tonight. I'm not following you, and I guess I would just say it would be my recommendation that you add to your city the city work academy that you're allowing citizens. I think the city council may need to take a course in Robert's Rules of Orders. Thank you.
Let me just say a lot of that might be due to my inexperience with sitting in this chair, and for that I apologize to everyone. Now, we have a motion. I'm sorry, go right ahead. Of course.
Todd Obadal, 124 Amity Drive. Just a couple weeks ago, we were discussing a backhoe and the bidding process on the backhoe, and it was revealed at that time that the specifications for one single product was used for the city's specifications on the item to be bid. But we were told that that it would go back, all these bids would go back, then they would be reviewed, and it would come back to council. I find it very, very concerning that this concrete bid was given to council as a reference without any indication that it wasn't compliant and should not be considered. It was discussed 2 weeks ago, and it's been discussed at other times, that council makes the decision. And we were told, as far as the backhoe was concerned, that other aspects to the specifications could be considered. And if we're looking at getting the best bang for the buck, we need to be considering all responsive bids. It's a very good question whether this concrete bid is responsive or not. There is also a concern that I have that these bids, there is a provision that they must be maintained for 60 days. We do need to make sure that if we do close these bids and reopen them, that we aren't putting any contractors, whether it be asphalt or concrete, at a disadvantage, and that we are following the law and we don't just get tied up in things here. I would like to also say I believe that this should be tabled. There seems to be a whole lot of confusion. There seems to be a whole lot of details that are unknown or are being sprung on at the 12th hour here. I don't think it's fair to any council member to get a handout with bid opportunities, and they're supposed, and y'all up here are supposed to be making the decision of what's best for the city. If you're getting something placed in front of you, if I was up there, I would think that I'm supposed to consider this. And then during the meeting saying, well, just ignore this, when in other bids for other products, there's notes making that this is a non-responsive bid, or it doesn't meet this criteria or that criteria. So we can have the discussion about what is instead of what we think is. I would also like to say that I find it troubling that we have council members being interrupted by the meeting's chair while they are trying to make their points. And the selectivity of these interruptions is also troubling. According to Robert's Rules of Order, when somebody has the floor, they get to speak. They should be able to finish their thought, their sentence even, without being interrupted by the chair. Thank you very much.
Mr. Jones, did you have some additional comments you wanted to make?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make a point of order. I guess the point that I understand that we are at in Robert's Rules of Order here is we have made a motion to call the question, so I don't understand why there's been more conversation and not a vote on the amendment right now. We should immediately be voting on this amendment. I think we're completely out of order as a body here.
Okay. We have an amendment. Would you please restate what your amendment is?
Kelly, have you got it written?
I have to reject the bids received and reopen the bidding process.
And that's the second as well. All in favor of the motion or the amendment, say aye.
Roll call vote on amendments.
I'm sorry, roll call. Sorry. Thank you.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey?
No.
Mr. Shimp?
No.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
No.
Mr. Schmidt?
No.
Mrs. Juon?
No.
Call the
Give me
A second.
Hold on. Give me 2 seconds to write this all down quick before I have to move around to my minutes again.
Okay.
Thank you. I
So
apologize.
we are back to our main motion, which was to accept the motion as presented.
And Mr.
correct?
Morrissey has just called the question, and I have seconded it.
Okay.
All in favor of calling the question?
Hold on. We got a roll call.
Okay.
Sorry, the phantom beeps are going again. And that was Shimp and Morrissey to call the question?
Yes.
Made the motion, I made the second.
Oh, Morrissey, Shimp, okay, thank you.
And what we're
On the original.
on
Original
number 9's
motion.
original resolution. Correct.
Mr. Morrissey,
This is the call to question.
on call the question, on the original
Yes.
motion. Mr. Shimp?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Juon?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
Yes.
Okay, now we have a motion approving the award of the bid to Aspro. And that's by
Roll call?
roll call.
Okay. Mr. Shimp?
No.
Mrs. Klein?
No.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt?
Yes.
Mrs. Juon?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs?
No.
Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Motion carries.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem,
Yes, sir.
you want me to take 10, 11, and 12?
Yes, please.
All right. Number 10, I move to make a resolution approving agreement with Iowa Heartland Habitat for Humanity for sanitary sewer extension in conjunction with the 1600 block of West 6th Street and the FY 2018 Street Reconstruction Program contract number 944, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute said document. Number 11, I move to make a resolution approving professional service agreement with Emmett Design of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, in the amount not to exceed $40,000 in conjunction with the Progress Avenue and Green Hill Road intersection, traffic signals, and geometric improvements, and authorize the mayor to execute said documents. Number 12, I move to make a resolution approving a professional services agreement with Emmett Design of Cedar Rapids, Iowa, in the amount of $36,907.20 in conjunction with the Amesboro Avenue pavement widening from Blackhawk North 0.1 miles to Downing Avenue, Iowa IDOT project number STP-A-8155, parentheses 757, parentheses -86 -07, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to execute said documents.
Second.
Okay. Discussion?
Ms. Mayor Pro Tem, if we could have an overview on number 12, please.
Sandy?
Greco, Interim Public Works Director. I have Mohammed Alahi, our traffic engineer, here tonight that can explain this is a design improvement. It's not the work itself. So if you want to explain.
Mohammed Alahi, traffic engineer. This is a design contract for widening Amesboro Avenue south of Downing intersection. North of Downing intersection, it's being widened on the same directions towards the east as part of University Avenue. And this will match that widening. In addition, it'll provide for a continuous two-way left turn center lane and a left turn lane at the intersection.
So if I could ask, how does that affect the neighboring businesses to the east?
We'll have to take a 12-foot, approximately. We don't know that until some design work has been done by the contractor, by the consultant. We need to take a strip of land about 12 feet starting from Tuffy's, going all the way to the intersection, and meet the other widening on the other side.
So have you talked to the businesses and figured out how it affects their day-to-day business operations?
They will be talked to after we have some kind of design and we have some more data. That's how it will be done. But we have talked to, last year we talked to the owner, not the tenant, the owner that has the car lot. We have talked to him.
I would recommend you talk to the tenants to see how that would impact their businesses or the use of those buildings in the future, because what likely could happen is it could prove those buildings unusable, and then what liability does that create for the city?
Definitely, that's part of the project. It has to be done.
I would prefer that we do that before we spend money on this project.
But we don't have the enough data about it until some design has been done. That's with all the projects like that. I don't think anybody talks to the property owners before they start the projects. That's the first they hire a consultant and then they talk to the, unless this council wants to do it differently, that's okay.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
So Mohammed, you may not have been part of the conversation, unless I'm mixing this up with something else, but I thought several months ago we talked about if Tuffy specifically has to give up that kind of land, they are going to be out of business, period. Not maybe, not could be, they're done. So I don't understand now saying, well, we don't know, we might have to talk to them. I need a little clarification there.
Yes.
Noel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. I might be able to help too. So we have been, obviously, the
I think it was the manager of the Toughies was here, the owner was here at council, and we did discuss briefly with him. We'll be looking at, as part of the design process, we'll be looking at some alternatives that may not require land at the Toughies end of the building. So there's some different options out there that the consultant will be looking at to basically minimize any impact on there, and we'll be discussing that with him as those designs are coming through.
As part of this project.
So this process will allow us to go in there and start to do design options in there that would allow us to make the traffic improvements and minimize the property impacts.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem, so what, this is just to make a conceptual design for this, right? No, we're not actually, I mean, I think maybe there's some confusion that we're like, what we're approving is to go on and just take some of the property or something, but we're trying to put a plan in place.
Correct.
Here, so that we're not putting the cart before the horse. So I think this is probably a good thing to do, so that we can meet with them. You know, we can present them with a plan rather than just saying, well, this may or may not happen, kind of thing, I think.
Mrs. Mayor Pro Tem, my thinking on this is that it's so simple. You're going to widen that road. It's going to have an effect on those businesses. I just hate spending almost $37,000 without having that initial talk with the businesses. Who all you got to do is walk up to them and say, "We're going to widen your road about this many feet." How's that going to affect you? I would rather put that horse before the cart.
And we have spoken with the businesses, I'm sorry, we have spoken with the businesses briefly, and they've sent us some information, pictures and all that of what their needs are and what they don't want impacted. And again, so we're aware of some of that as we move ahead in the design process to try to avoid any impact to that.
Do we have a report on that, Noel?
Not a report, just like you said, we're just talking back and forth with them about here's what they, you know, specifically with Toughies, he was worried about the exact way that the tow trucks bring cars there and things like that, and how they drop them off and that distance from the building. And so we'll be looking at that as part of the process. And figuring out, is there a way to make the road improvements and not minimizing that past the point where he has no return.
This is Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
So we've looked at this. So we've talked about this as a few months ago. No, I know we talked about this, and what we found out is that Toughies was an oversized building on the lot to begin with. They've already told us they don't have enough room now, and this will then, Councilman Shimp, I hate to say it, but once we spend $37,000, which I understand 80% is a grant, but this will lock us into this project, because then we're going to say we've already spent all this money on this project. The problem here that I don't want to see us to do is then all of a sudden we've deemed these buildings unusable. Now the city is going to have to buy these buildings. And I just don't think that benefit is worth it.
Obviously, that's our goal too. We want to help strengthen the businesses by improving the traffic in this area. You know, as one example, that again, just a brief layout. One example is that the actual taper into that full lane over there would not begin until you were past the Toughies part, so further north where they have a little bit more room because the building is set back further. Again, that's one option that we'll be exploring as we're looking at the length and the width of all the lines out there, lanes out there.
So no, what I would like to see is that information presented to council before we're obligated to spend some of our money, at least $6,151.20 of our bond money. I would like to see what your ideas are that would not impact our business customers.
But isn't that the point of the design work, to come up with a design that would meet our traffic needs as well as ensure that we're not harming the business? That's
we
part
can
of
show
the
you.
design project.
Ms. Pro Tem, Mr. Anson's already said he's already has a preliminary design on how to taper this, so I would like to see that. I don't see that attached anywhere here.
Yeah, it's a drawing. We don't know if it'll actually
You have it?
work. Not on me. No, I do not.
Well, then, there you go. I would like some more information, Mrs. Mayor Pro Tem.
Okay. Further questions?
Mrs. Mayor Pro Tem, I just don't see this as business friendly.
You don't see this
I don't
as
see
what?
it as business friendly at all. I go that way all the time, and those businesses are going to be severely impacted. I'd like to hear their statements of impact prior.
Mr. Greco, do you want to address this or any further staff input? Mr. Morrissey?
Well, I just wanted to add that to me, I see this as no different than us awarding a contract like to AECom to do some design, or awarding a contract to somebody to design a concept for the Wonder Bread redevelopment in that. That's what this is. And that whole corridor there are businesses. There's a few private properties there, and that's part of what goes into a design. We're, at this point in time, asking that the council, this is asking the council to approve to go ahead and give this money for this design. And if we want to have some input in on the design, then we need to have the contract with the designer, and that's what this is doing.
I agree. Further questions or comments? If not, we have a motion with a second. Roll call. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, sir.
John Sherbin, 1715 Robin Road. We did a little work on this road before. It's been my pet peeve to have the parking and stuff as it is. It's also been a traffic problem that nobody is really wanting to address very well. We've already spent way more than $8,000 on a study. We had a traffic design done. We don't know whether that traffic pattern was in the daytime, the nighttime, what day it was, whatever. I've talked to the business owners. Those are solid businesses from Black Hawk Street all the way down to University Avenue on that side. Now, if we're gonna, in our wisdom, if we're gonna take half of that block and leave it and then taper it so we still got a half a block, so we still got our traffic jam. We've managed to put stoplights in that stop although it's a little better, it stops one side of the road and lets the traffic go on the other. It's both got arrows. I can turn left on an arrow. If the traffic was going, they should run an arrow, maybe both ways, and then everybody'd be, I can figure this out. This isn't rocket science. Just stand there and watch. And I don't get paid. I didn't spend $200 and some thousand on studies on it, and that's a fact too. We don't just got $7,000 or $8,000 in this thing. We have got a load of money in it, and nobody's happy about it except who is designing this. The business owners don't want it. I don't want it. I go down that road every day. Who is happy with this, and who started it? My question, well, the answer I got was somebody was in an accident once and they got rear-ended or something, so they want to get that out of there. That's fine. But we have a lot of accidents, a lot more corners than that. Thank you.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
I think what this is before we jump to any conclusions here, this is a design to basically give us an idea of what we could do. And then once we have that design, we will present that to those businesses so that they can see that, and then they will have the ability to object to them should they want to here in these chambers. But I mean, until then, Noel can't just take the piece of paper with a drawing on it that he has and give it to these businesses and say, this is what we think we're going to do. No, we need a professional to come in here and do that type of thing. And, I don't like spending money any more than anybody else, okay? But we did, 80% of this is a grant, so let's go ahead and do it. Let's get a good professional opinion that we can present to these businesses, and hopefully when the conversation comes up again, Noel and his staff and the rest of the city staff will include these businesses in the discussion of what should happen. But I mean, until then, you need something in place to bring a design. We can't just bring, Noel's scribbled drawing and present it. There has to be something to present to them.
Thank you. Yes, sir.
David Dreyer, 3145 West 4th Street. I as well travel that street quite often. At the meeting that the guy from Tuffy's was here, I recall that he was informed that he would be kept abreast of everything that was going on this. Has that happened?
Good point.
All these design possibilities, etc. Has he been communicated with? Plus the people on the other side of the street. Have they been communicated with?
Noel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. We don't have anything to communicate with them because we don't have a design to show them.
Okay.
Again, we met with them to find out what their concerns were. We've taken those into account. We would be sharing that with the consultant if hired to figure that into the design options.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes.
I stopped at the manager at Tuffy's tonight. He was not even aware that this was coming up tonight, to be able to be here and talk about it. So that's lack of communication on the city's part. You've got to do better than that, in my opinion. And I'll tell you what, for $300, I'll draw up something because I'm a draftsman, and I'll make it look legal and all that crap for $300, not $36 to almost $37,000, and present it to those people because they need to know more than after we've spent. I don't care if it's 80% covered by somebody else. Somebody else's money is still taxpayers' money, and you're wasting it. Please don't continue to do that. I also have a comment on number 10. Did we not sell this land to Habitat for Humanity for $1?
I believe we did.
I think we did.
Anderson, did we
Anyway,
sell
I'll
that?
continue. Well, all right. Thanks, Noel.
Noel Anderson, Community Planning Development Director. Yes, we did. This is the former Irving School site, which we obtained from the Waterloo schools for $1. We transferred it to Habitat through a development agreement for them to build houses on.
Okay, Madam Mayor Pro Tem. Then, according to what I'm reading here, or what I'm assuming here, is that we're going to put the sewer and water in for them. If we sold it for $1 to them, then why can't they do that rather than taxpayer footing the bill again for somebody else's advantage? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we have a motion in front of us accepting all three of those resolutions.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir. Todd Oberdahl, 124 Amity Drive. Thank you. I would like to speak to item number 12 on this agenda. This is asking us to spend $36,000 before we even have a conversation with somebody about taking, whether it's 6 feet, 8 feet, 12 feet, 30 feet. We should be able to have that conversation with the business owners before spending $36,907.20. When this was brought up previously, we were told it was just going to be a sliver of land, and it really wouldn't, the amount of cost was not factored into what was presented some months ago on this. And some people did some investigations and found out the impact that it would have, particularly on the Tuffy's property. We need to know what that impact is going to be beforehand if we even want to do this project before we spend $36,000. One of the worst pieces of road in Waterloo right now is University Avenue going westbound to Cedar Falls at Midway, where it jumps from 3 lanes to 2 lanes, whether that's Cedar Falls' fault or our fault, I'm not saying. It's really bad. To complicate, to do tapering here at Amesboro, I don't see how that facilitates safety. From being in these rooms and listening and being at these meetings, it's my understanding that this all started with University and Amesboro being a problem intersection. So we put in these staggered lights at Downing, which decreased the problems at University and Amesboro, but that precipitated a rear-end crash at Downing and Amesboro. So now we are correcting a problem that we created when we could be looking back onto seeing how can we do synchronization with lights. Do we actually need this? What is the cost of this? We can have this conversation. We can go to the business and say, if we take out 12 feet of your parking, can you still do your business here? Or are we going to then have to buy that property? These are the impacts that we have. We can find this out ahead of time. And then if we do decide to go through with the planning, with the development plan on this, we can tell the consultants, do not take more than 10 feet or whatever that number is. We can figure it out at that point. We can assist the people we are hiring to find the answers, to find a better answer for us. I don't think we need to spend money to find out how taking X, Y, or Z amount of land from somebody's parking lot, as was noted, where there's an oversized building and insufficient parking as is, how that would affect that, and we can make a better decision as to whether we're spending money down the road, and particularly money here for the design plan and the consulting. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. Thorson.
Eric Thorson, Senior. Just so it's clear on item number 10, this is actually an agreement with Habitat for Humanity for them to pay for the sanitary sewer extension. We just included that work in our contract for better coordination, and they're agreeing and have agreed previously, and this is just the final document that indicates that they will reimburse the city for this sewer extension.
Great, thank you very much.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
Could we just have a quick overview, Sandy, of item number 11?
Sandy Greco, Interim Public Works Director. We have temporary signals up there now. And in order to, say, look ahead to, there isn't money available right now to, say, put in a left turn lane from both ways. So we are having a design done to accommodate that in the future and to be able to put in permanent signals now that would also accommodate those left turn lanes in the future if they go in. We're also gonna maybe look at a roundabout there to see if it would work, but from what we've heard before, it will not because of the Sager intersection's too close. But we're gonna look at both.
Thank you.
And Sandy, through that process, we would be talking to the business owners along the way.
This is
Well,
Green
I'm
Hill,
sorry, but-
where we're in contact with the neighbors
I'm
in
sorry.
that.
I'm
yeah.
sorry. I'm on a
No, we're
different
in
one. I'm on a
contact with the neighbors in that neighborhood
Yes.
anyway.
Yes,
They're very
thank
happy
you.
with those staff.
Yes.
Madam,
They are.
Yes.
Madam Mayor
Thank
Pro
you.
Tem, I want to go back to number 12 quick on that. So no, I don't make it over that way very often. Has that been, that portion of the road hasn't been widened yet?
The portion we're talking about, that is correct.
It has been widened.
It has not.
It has not.
The area to the north is being widened as part of the University Avenue.
Does voting yes in favor of this automatically widen the road?
No, it does
Just-
not. It
Gives
would
you-
have to
gives
come
us
back
this-
to council for actual action on that.
And so at that time, anybody could oppose it that
That is correct.
wanted to oppose it. Right.
And my understanding is, Mr. Anderson, that this is just the design work that would include the businesses, right?
That is
in the
correct. We will need,
discussion.
obviously, we will need to work with the businesses. We want to see them succeed, but we'll need easements and things like that from them as we're going through the process.
And no,
Thank you.
will it address the impact on the businesses?
Yes.
Yes, it'll look at the different options on that, yes.
Thank you.
All right, we have a motion on the floor. Roll call, please.
Mrs. Klein,
Yes on 10 and 11, no on 12.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt,
Yes on 10, 11, no on 12.
Mrs. Juon,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs,
Yes on 10, 11, no on 12.
Mr. Morrissey,
Yes.
Mr. Shimp.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries. Now, where are we?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, 13 through 15, please.
Like to make a motion to adopt a resolution approving Convention and Visitors Bureau Board recommendation for funding a hotel motel mini grant application in the amount of $2,530 in conjunction with the ISMA Bench Bar Conference. 14 is a resolution approving Convention and Visitors Bureau Board recommendation for funding a hotel motel mini grant application in the amount of $2,500 or $2,501 in conjunction with the Iowa Water Environment Association Conference. And number 15 is a resolution approving the Iowa Department of Natural Resources wastewater disposal system construction permit application fee form and construction permit application Schedule A general information for the fiscal year 2019 Brock 3rd Edition Sanitary Sewer Extension Contract Number 954 and authorizing the mayor to sign said application.
Second.
Discussion? No, roll call, please.
Mr. Amos,
Yes.
Mr. Schmidt,
Yes.
Mrs. Juon,
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs,
Yes.
Mr. Morrissey.
Yes.
Mr. Shimp.
Yes.
Mrs. Klein.
Yes.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
Number 16, I would motion to receive, file, and consider and pass for the third time and adopt ordinance amending ordinance number 5079 as amended City of Waterloo zoning ordinance by amending the official zoning map referred to in section 10-4-4, approving a site plan amendment on certain property located south of 720 North Elk Run Road.
Second.
Oh, I'm sorry, I will also read the request for that. It is a request by Heinold Hog Markets LLC for a site plan amendment to the M2P Planned Industrial District for the construction of a 12,375 square foot livestock processing facility located south of 720 North Elk Run Road.
Second.
Second. Okay, discussion? Not, all in favor?
It's a roll
Voice.
call.
I'm sorry, roll call?
Mr. Shimp?
Yes.
Mrs. Juon?
Yes.
Mr. Jacobs? Mr. Morrissey?
Yes.
Mr. Shimp?
Yes.
Mrs. Klein?
Yes.
Mr. Amos?
Yes.
Mr. Shimp, did you want to continue?
Oh, did I? Wasn't that it? It passed.
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yeah, there's a motion to receive.
No, we already did. We already voted.
That's all one
Mr.
motion.
Morrison doing second.
So we're on,
We're on
I'm sorry.
17.
We're on a
That,
different item.
he didn't read through the whole thing. Okay, gotcha.
So now we're on other.
I'm sorry.
business.
Thank
Okay.
you. Thank you.
There you go.
Right.
Thank you.
I might have some.
Pat, do you want to take 17?
Why waiting to be?
Okay, sorry. Go ahead, and would somebody
Okay.
do number 17?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem.
Yes, sir.
Okay, I'd like to make a motion authorizing approval of not to exceed amount of $40,000 for estimated quantity adjustments for the fiscal year 2018 Waterloo Boathouse Enhancements Contract number 940.
Second.
Discussion? Okay. This is voice vote. So, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same?
Madam Mayor Pro Tem?
Yes.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Yes, please. Thank you. Second. All in favor?
Aye.
Say aye.
Aye.
Thank you.